Phoenix Nights. Chapter 1042. Tiffany didn't resist the power of death. She completely relaxed her soul and felt that she seemed to have entered a special existence. Her consciousness that she thought would be forever blurred unexpectedly became clear. In front of her eyes was a vast galaxy, which was completely different from the starry sky at night. It was Tiffany's first time seeing such a spectacular universe, and she was in it. Under the impact of that vastness, it seemed that even her mind had become open. "Are you surprised?" The familiar voice made Tiffany's consciousness move, and she had already appeared in a magnificent hall. This hall seemed to be suspended above all the starry sky, and she could see everything in the entire universe from an incredible angle. "Welcome to the Galaxy Divinity Temple." Tiffany looked at Chunrei in the hall, and a strange feeling arose in her heart. It seemed that he was a god that needed to be worshipped, but this feeling quickly disappeared. The corner of Tiffany's mouth moved, and she finally asked, "Am I already dead?" "Your soul has been separated from your body by a secret technique and absorbed into this world." Chunrei spread his hands. "Your body has lost its soul. In fact, it's no different from death." Tiffany's expression was very calm. Obviously, she didn't care about life and death at all. "Very well, since you have the awareness of indifference to life and death, then you can accept it calmly even if you really die here." Tiffany didn't speak. She just looked at the starry sky in front of her blankly. "See this universe?" Chunrei walked to her side and used his mind to magnify her perception, extending it to the entire galaxy territory. "This is actually a large galaxy territory. As you can see, there are many galaxies in it with different shapes. They look very beautiful. Those stars that shine like the sun are called stars, and there are many planets around them. Stars are the core of life in the galaxy. Generally speaking, only galaxies with stars have life. Do you see those planets? The world we usually live in, that is, the demon realm plus the human world, or called the main plane, is only equivalent to a planet. A planet is so small in the galaxy of stars. The star field you are looking at now has trillions of such stars. In the real universe, there are even more star fields like this." Although Tiffany's expression was still wooden, her eyes flashed with surprise. She could feel that the universe in front of her was real. Chunrei wasn't lying to her, and there was no need for him to lie to her. There is no eternity in the universe, including the universe itself. If there is anything that is constant, it would be the two basic laws of creation and destruction. Everything that is born has a time of destruction. You, me, and even the entire universe is the same. The lifespan of an ordinary person is 100 years, a few hundred years, and we cultivators can live for thousands, tens of thousands of years, or even longer. Meanwhile, the lifespan of an ordinary planet or star is measured in hundreds of millions of years, and the longer ones can reach trillions, billions of years, or even longer. Once their lifespan is over, they will be annihilated and die, just like humans. However, for the vast universe, the birth and death of a galaxy that had existed for 1 trillion years was merely the blink of an eye. Our lifespan of hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of years may seem long, but for the universe, it is just a drop in the ocean. In such a great universe, even the birth and death of a planet was just a moment. Life and what one experienced in life were even more insignificant. Tiffany looked at the vast and boundless galaxy, and she seemed to understand something in her heart, but she didn't really comprehend it. While she was thinking, a gentle female voice sounded beside her. "Chunrei, is this the new companion you brought to me?" It was a woman. Her appearance and temperament could be called a peerless beauty. What left the deepest impression was her eyes, which were as deep as the ocean. This woman should be a soul body like herself, but for some reason, Tiffany felt very at ease beside this woman. The feeling of a soul was the most real. "Companions, you can say that." Chunrei spread his hands. "First, let me introduce Veronica and Tiffany." "Tiffany, very nice names." Veronica looked at Tiffany's somewhat stupefied expression. "It seems that my new friend doesn't seem to like to talk very much." Not only does she not like to talk, she doesn't even have the strength to live. Chinrui sighed. Veronica carefully looked at Tiffany and slowly nodded. Numbness, despair, pain, loss of purpose in life. Just living like a withered plant. Even if one day it turns into ashes, it is only a kind of relief. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. You can see so much at a glance. Chinrui shrugged. It seems that I don't have to waste my breath. The look in Veronica's eyes deepened. Because looking at her now is like looking at me in the mirror. Chinrui was slightly shocked and whispered. Sorry, Veronica, it's me in the past. Veronica shook her head gently and looked at him deeply. Now I have left that mirror and truly found a meaningful life. Chinrui stared at the fluctuations in those sea blue eyes. This time, he didn't retreat. 7 days. She only has 7 days at most. Otherwise, she will really die. Although Chinrui didn't explain further, Veronica knew what he meant. Understood. Help Tiffany out of the shadow within 7 days. Veronica. Chinrui pondered for a while and didn't say anything more. He just nodded to her. I'm very happy that you didn't say thank you. Veronica showed a gentle smile and said to Tiffany, Tiffany, come with me. Since you aren't even afraid of death, then there is no need to hesitate for the next thing. Tiffany didn't move at first, but when she heard the last sentence, she finally silently followed Veronica's footsteps. Chinrui watched the two figures go away. The gentle smile that seemed to contain everything still remained in his mind. In those beautiful sea blue eyes, he clearly saw a kind of emotion. There was no reluctance or pretense, and there was no need to hide it. It was just a natural emotion. Gratitude? Brother and sister? Confidant? Or something else? For some reason, Chinrui suddenly thought of 2 sentences that might be irrelevant. Thank you for holding my hand at that time. If you are well, the sky is clear. The feeling brought by these 2 sentences lingered faintly in his heart. When his mind moved, he had already left the super system. What appeared in front of him was Tiffany, who fell on the ground. Her eyes were hollow, and she wasn't breathing, as if she was dead. Only her body functions temporarily maintained signs of living. Soul transfer can fuse my own power to attack the enemy's soul, and can launch the power of soul detach to extract the enemy's body. The success rate depends on the opponent's strength and soul strength. This extraction is 1 time, and the longest effective time is 7 days. After 7 days, if the soul can't return to the body with the power of soul return, the soul will be completely annihilated. This ability was obtained after the super system was promoted. However, it wasn't the ability of the super system, but the blood fiend ring. This was actually an accident. Since the blood fiend ring was not analyzed by Chinrui, it couldn't be stored in space equipment or the storage warehouse of the super system. Therefore, Chinrui made a necklace and hung the ring in front of his chest. As a result, in the final battle with Ben Hong in the Light Divinity Temple at the peak of the Holy Mountain, he fully activated deep analytical eyes. Under the wonderful power of the qualitative change of the realm and the promotion of the super system, not only the power of the Tower of Glory was completely turned into his own, but even the Blood Fiend Ring was automatically analyzed successfully. After the God-Eating Mask, Demon Shield, Sword of Fallen Angel, and Angry King's Armor, it became the 5th of the 7 artifacts with the surname Chun. 4.5 artifacts to be precise. The 7 artifacts were the highest artifacts of the 7 royal families of the demon realm. They were only equivalent to the level of quasi-artifact. However, judging from some of the information obtained in the past, the 7 artifacts should be parts of a certain supreme artifact. He didn't know what would happen when the 7 artifacts were gathered. There were still 2.5 of the remaining 7 artifacts. The illusory shield was in the hands of Delia, the breeze shadow boots was in the hands of Isabella, and the dark shadow cloak was in the hands of Catherine. If necessary, it wasn't impossible to take them all for himself. However, before figuring out some things, Chinrui didn't dare to act recklessly. Moreover, once it was analyzed, it couldn't be returned to the original owner, so he must consider it carefully. At present, The most practical insider was the powerhouse of the same era as Satan and Michael, Ben Hong. At that time, Ben Hong's soul was severely damaged and almost collapsed. He finally chose to surrender and got the power of Quiriana's clone. After absorbing this power, Ben Hong had been in a state of deep sleep recovery. It was better to wait for her to wake up before asking the relevant secrets in detail. Not only the 7 artifacts, but Chunrui also had many questions in his mind that needed to be answered. Just now, Tiffany's soul was extracted by Chunrui with the power of soul detach. Since she completely gave up resistance, it was quite successful. This skill was actually used to enslave or interrogate and read memories. Of course, Chunrui wouldn't do that, but he kept it in the super system. With the precedent of Veronica, Chunrui had done related experiments after returning to the demon realm. He found that he could directly transform a soul that had lost its power or resistance into an attendant of the temple. Therefore, Tiffany temporarily became an oracle. Tiffany's current situation was equivalent to a walking dead. In fact, Isabella felt the same way. Her usual sarcasm was also to stimulate her to pull herself together, but unfortunately, the effect was minimal. Veronica also had a similar experience, and now she had successfully found a new life, so Chunrui hoped that she could help Tiffany get out of the haze. Soul detach could only be used once. These 7 days were crucial for Tiffany. For Tiffany, he really didn't have any extra thoughts. He was more sympathetic, but now he blacklisted her blood-spirit ring. Even if there was no marriage contract, or the impact of the overall situation, he had to help her no matter what. If Tiffany still couldn't get out of the haze by then, Chunrui didn't know if he should choose to free her or cast soul return, to turn her back into the living dead who was still alive. In any case, the key was still Tiffany herself. 7 days. Chapter 1043. Chunrui didn't keep an eye on Tiffany all the time. This was useless, and it might even backfire. With Veronica, a guide who had similar experiences, he believed that it would give Tiffany more help. The most important thing was that Tiffany could figure it out herself. The place he was going now was the Blue Lake mountain range. This was a very important base for the Dark Moon Estate and the entire Fallen Angel Empire. This used to be a treasure place that produced the magic formula to improve the soil and the fountain of life. As a major diplomatic weapon of the Fallen Angel Empire, the magic soil formula had improved many barren soils. The agriculture of the entire demon realm had undergone a qualitative change because of this. In a sense, it was no less than the rise of commerce. The Fountain of Life became a special resource of the Fallen Angel Empire's Potioneer Association. Tetanus, a double Grand Master of Potion and Mechanics, was now the president of the association. The most famous one was naturally Tetini's disciple, Aguile, who had become a legendary figure. Although he was elusive, he was still a legend hotly discussed by all alchemists. The Blue Lake mountain range was the location of the Tauran tribe. This was naturally not the NTR mentioned by Alice, but the real Tauran. With the branch that Chunrui brought out of the underground world of Mountain Shillong as the main one, they integrated the clansmen who came to seek refuge in various areas. They became the largest weapon and armor forging base of the Fallen Angel Empire, which was comparable to the dwarves in the human world. At the same time, this was also the most important place, the ancient alchemy civilization city. City of Stars. There was a precipice in front of him. Chunrui was not moved by the scene in front of him. He walked in step by step and soon entered the precipice. This was not an illusion, but a kind of space array. Only the owner of the corresponding spirit power could enter. If another person advanced like this, he would definitely encounter the real precipice. After walking into the precipice, and passing through a long passage, he saw a large shining building in front of him. This was a city with silver as the main color. The appearance seemed to be made of special metal. Instead of saying it was a city, it was better to say it was a giant metal fortress that integrated offense and defense. This was the brand new City of Stars. Chunrui was slightly surprised. This fortress looked even more majestic, but in the past, after a civilization leveled up, the scale of the city would greatly increase, just like when a level 2 civilization fortress was upgraded to a level 3 civilization city. The level 4 civilization city, Skywheel, that Chinrui saw on the Storm Island was much larger than the original level 3 civilization city. City of Stars. However, the City of Stars in front of him not only did not expand, but it shrank, more than half of the original level 3 civilization. Chinrui was surprised, but he didn't stop and walked forward step by step. The City of Stars had long detected the spiritual imprint of the highest ruler. The silver gate in front of him opened automatically. Chinrui walked through the gate and felt his eyes light up. His vision suddenly widened. After entering the gate, the main road was at least 50 meters wide, leading straight ahead. There were all kinds of military buildings on both sides. Looking at it from afar, it was almost endless. His first impression was that it was grand and grand. It was not as compact as it looked from the outside. It was as if he had entered another world. Level 5 Alchemy Civilization City. Urban Spatialization. Two new terms suddenly appeared in Chinrui's mind. The last time he temporarily returned to the demon realm from the human world, he gave the Earth Source fragment to the Earth Elemental King Moore. At the same time, he also brought back the most precious alchemy civilization upgrade materials obtained from the legendary prophet, Elixir. With these materials, after several months of transformation and upgrade, the City of Stars finally achieved a 2-level jump from a level 3 civilization city to a level 5 civilization city in one fell swoop. The alchemy civilization level from low to high was Fortress, level 1 and level 2, City, level 3 and level 4, City, level 5, and Capital, level 6. Every time a level was upgraded, there would be huge changes, and the ability would become more powerful. The level 5, City, civilization was a watershed. As for the highest level 6 capital civilization, it had a special uniqueness. Back then, there were countless kingdoms and empires in the alchemy civilization world, but only the 4 empires had capital level cities. As Chinrui saw, space was a unique ability of the level 5 alchemy city. The entire alchemy city became a huge independent space that was far larger than the size seen on the surface. It could accommodate a large number of people and armies. At this moment, 2 teams of tall titans appeared on both sides of the avenue. They knelt on one knee and saluted. Chinrui's gaze fell on the titans, and he suddenly showed a look of surprise. It turned out that among these titans, a few had reached the kingdom level. The titans not only had the melee ability comparable to the dragons of the same level, but they could also manipulate storms or lightning for long-range attacks. They could be called the most powerful war machine of the alchemy civilization. The only shortcoming was the upper limit of their strength. They had been unable to break through the limit of Demon Overlord. After the City of Stars was upgraded to level 5, it actually automatically broke through the most critical bottleneck and stepped into kingdom level. With a thought, Chinrui had entered the core control center palace. The space of the central palace had also expanded a lot. It became a large hall that could automatically change into various facilities at will. The change was not only the appearance but also the attributes of the entire space. Even if the entire City of Stars was destroyed, outsiders could not enter without the permission of the controller. "Welcome, Master!" A beautiful girl appeared in front of Chinrui. She was wearing a classical robe, showing a special charm. "Crystal Phoenix?" Chinrui recognized the identity of this girl at a glance, but what surprised him was that the Crystal Phoenix did not seem to be a projection, but some kind of energy entity. "Yes, Master." The girl performed an ancient civilization's etiquette. When she bent down, the open neckline revealed a shocking deep ravine. If a certain lowly princess was here, she would definitely be filled with resentment. Another big-breasted alien. Chinrui coughed and looked away. "It should be successfully upgraded to a level 5 civilization city now." "Yes, Master." The girl raised her hands respectfully, and a light curtain appeared in front of Chinrui. This is the latest city structure map and upgraded functions. Shinrui looked at the display on the light curtain carefully and was shocked. It turned out that he had underestimated this level 5 alchemy city. This was not a city but a battleship. When it was a level 2 civilization fortress, the City of Stars once flew above the Warlock Fortress and shocked the entire Bloody Empire army. Unfortunately, it was just an empty shell. Later, it was almost defeated by Raisin with his bare hands. The current level 5 civilization city was no longer the same. It was not simply floating, but it could accelerate, decelerate, and soar freely in the sky like a battleship. Not only was it equipped with various powerful weapons, but it could also use the special, space, ability of a level 5 civilization to perform long-distance space jumps. To be precise, the current City of Stars was a giant mothership. This was no longer the concept of a magical world that focused on training, but it was the science fiction that Shinrui knew in his previous life. From the development of alchemy civilization, the training of the body was relatively diluted. It was more with the help of foreign objects. It was indeed a civilization closer to science. A huge mothership ghostly dropped countless paratroopers behind the enemy. The soldiers of the alchemy civilization carried out a surprise attack. Just thinking about it made his blood boil. After upgrading to level 4, the number of creatures controlled had increased 5-fold. The number of gremlin servants could reach 300,000, 150,000 crystal beasts, 75,000 lamp spirits, 15,000 assemble puppets, and 1,500 giant crystal beasts. The Titans were considered non-staff soldiers. They were controlled by Shinrui alone, so they were not included in this list. However, due to material limitations, there were about 2,000 Titans in the Storm Island. In addition, the offensive and defensive capabilities of the fortress, the production speed of creatures, the research function of the cultivation pool, and the speed of material conversion had been greatly enhanced. Some elites had undergone super evolution, which was equivalent to breaking through the bottleneck. The specific number was limited to 1%. In other words, the 1,500 giant crystal beasts allowed up to 15 kingdomized existences. If this number was exceeded, it would be impossible to control and continue to evolve. After upgrading to level 5, the number of creatures increased by 10 times again. There were 3 million gremlin servants, 1.5 million crystal beasts, 750,000 lamp spirits, 150,000 assemble puppets, 15,000 giant crystal beasts, and 2,000 titans. The super evolution rate could reach 2%. Although it was only an increase of 1%, the base was 10 times more than level 4. It was equivalent to 15,000 giant crystal beasts, which could create 300 super powerhouses. The most amazing evolution was the elite cultivation pool of a level 5 civilization. There was a chance for a second super evolution to birth a demigod-level alchemy creature, but the success rate was quite low. Once it failed, it would be destroyed, just like the upgrade of the lamp spirit's heart lamp. Even so, hundreds of kingdom-level warriors were enough to become a terrifying force even for a kingdom without ordinary kingdom-level powerhouses, not to mention that there might be a demigod-level super creature. However, even a powerful alchemy civilization was completely buried in the hands of the Abyss. He couldn't relax his vigilance against the great enemy of the Abyss at any time. By now, the power of the ordinary world was no longer in Shinrui's eyes. With his current strength plus this huge force, not to mention conquering the demon realm, even the entire main plane was enough. The premise was that the top pseudogods didn't intervene. Otherwise, as long as there was Raphael, no matter how many alchemy creatures there were, it would be useless. This super battleship was very powerful and had many new functions, but no matter which one it was, it required a huge amount of basic energy support. Basic energy was originally the biggest problem of alchemy civilization. From the central crystal to the production and combat of creatures, they all needed the support of energy. In the original civilized world, many empires and kingdoms did not hesitate to wage war because of the exhaustion of energy. In the memory crystal left by the mad scientist Aruda, there were some fragments about war. That grand scene reminded Shinrei of a famous real-time strategy game with the theme of interstellar war. Shinrei's current Purple Pole Emperor super system could almost provide unlimited aura fruits, and it could be turned into the purest basic energy through the energy converter of a level 5 civilization. Therefore, this biggest problem was also solved. The only urgent problem was a special, rule energy. There were two main uses for this energy. The first was the defense of the city. This rule energy was used for special heavy weapon attacks. It was similar to the supreme rule power, and its power was extremely amazing. The second was more important, which was super evolution. If he wanted to cultivate and experiment with super evolution, this was an essential energy source. The current, rule energy of the City of Stars came from the rule fragments provided by Shinrei. A rule fragment in the early stage of the kingdom could be converted into 10 rule energy blocks of 1,000 units. Generally speaking, an alchemy creature's super evolution required about 500 units of rule energy. If he tried to evolve it for the second time, it would need 5,000 units, and it might not succeed. Due to the limited energy, there were currently only 7 titans and 4 giant crystal beasts in the City of Stars. The rule energy in the storage of the City of Stars had all been used up. There were only 3 rule fragments left in Shinrei's hands. It seemed that after settling some matters, he needed to go to the production place of the rule fragments. Chapter 1044. Under the pale moonlight. Thick smoke billowed, and the flickering fire burned the night red. In the town, there were shouts and screams of horror everywhere. Gray figures rode horses and moved forward, harvesting innocent lives along the way from time to time with the long knives in their hands, including the old, weak, women, and children. These were all horse bandits. If it were a few years ago, with the town's defensive power, it would have been difficult for the horse bandits to break into the town. But in recent years the town had been ravaged by war. More than half of the young men were killed or injured, and the guards had all fled. Now, it was no longer able to resist these horse bandits, who took advantage of the situation. Although a few townspeople stood up to resist, they were quickly killed due to their limited strength. The rest lost their fighting spirit and fled in all directions. The horse bandits whistled in a strange rhythm, killing the townspeople while looting their belongings. At the same time, they shot fire arrows and set fire to the houses, further creating chaos. The only ones who were spared were the rather beautiful women. These women would be taken away and become sex slaves. There was only one end for them: death. In a courtyard, surrounded by fire, there was no way to rush out. A woman holding a baby inside was crying for help, but the people outside were too busy to care for themselves. No one came. The hot air and thick smoke gradually weakened the cry for help. This scene made Tiffany's breathing more and more heavy. Her whole body was burning with a strong light. She wanted to put out the fire, but no matter how hard she tried, it was useless. For her, this world was like a phantom, but she could feel that it was definitely not an illusion, but a real existence. However, as an oracle, she was more of a bystander, and her ability to interfere with this world was quite limited. Generally speaking, she could only do it once a day. During the day, when she was helping the wounded in another place, she had used up this ability. If the nearby Tower of Faith had not been destroyed because of the war, and if the townspeople still had the corresponding faith in their hearts, then she could exert additional power and change some things. Unfortunately, after experiencing all kinds of hardships in the past, the faith among the villagers had greatly declined, so Tiffany could only watch it happen without being able to do anything. Although the woman still protected the baby with her body at the last moment, she could not change her tragic fate. In the end, she turned into ashes together with the entire courtyard. Tiffany clenched her fists. If she wasn't a soul, her fists would have been bleeding. The neighing of a horse could be heard from the other side. An old man was petrified. His pupils were imprinted with the image of a long saber swinging towards him, flickering with the cold light of death. Blood splattered in all directions, and the white-haired head flew high into the air. The headless body slowly fell to the ground. A few of the bandits laughed, and continued to ride their horses forward. Soon, they found a new target, a couple who was running away with a few children. The mounted gangsters in front settled their mounts, took out their bows and arrows from their backs, and aimed at the child running at the very front. At that moment, a golden light descended from the sky. The golden light instantly illuminated the entire town. Wherever the golden light went, the fire was extinguished, and the injured residents of the town began to slowly recover. The spirits of the townspeople were greatly lifted, and they all shouted for God's miracle. Encouraged by a special power in their spirits, some bold people began to fight back. They picked up sticks, axes, forks, or threw burning objects to attack. Soon, more and more people joined the team. The horse bandits immediately panicked. Many horse bandits were thrown off their horses because their horses were frightened or attacked. Some were hit by burning objects and caught on fire. Under the unity of will, more than half of the horse bandits were killed. Only a few escaped in a sorry state. Hearing the cheers of the townspeople, Tiffany finally felt relieved. She looked gratefully at Veronica, who appeared next to her. Veronica smiled gently at her. "Actually, you should know that I'm about the same as you. The power that I can exert is quite limited. The reason why these people can defeat the enemy is because they rely more on their own strength. Only with faith and hope can there be power." Tiffany seemed to understand and nodded silently. Veronica gently held her hand. "There's not much time left. We should go." Tiffany's hand that was held trembled slightly. Looking at Veronica's encouraging eyes, she did not break free. Their figures gradually dimmed and then disappeared. In the blink of an eye, they had traveled through an unknown distance of space and returned to the Galaxy Divinity Temple. "Today is the last day, right?" Veronica asked, looking at the towering Tower of Faith. "Yes." Although she did not speak much, Tiffany was no longer silent in front of Veronica. "I don't want to say anything unnecessary, but I hope that you can look straight into your heart and make the final choice." Tiffany nodded. Although she was far older than Veronica, in front of Veronica, she was like a child who needed to be taken care of. Veronica also felt the same way. In fact, when she first brought Tiffany to a planet as an oracle, she had been observing Tiffany, observing the girl who Chinray said had lost the courage to live. On that planet, they happened to witness a huge natural disaster. Countless people were suffering in pain and despair. Famine was everywhere, and people were crying everywhere. It was an extreme tragedy that could not be described with words or words. Tiffany was just watching quietly before, but the scene was too shocking. When she saw parents exchanging their children for food, tears finally gushed out uncontrollably. Then, Tiffany silently followed Veronica and learned to use her limited power to encourage and help these disaster victims. Veronica was very pleased because when some people were in despair, they would see the pain and despair of others. In contrast, the pain in their hearts would be relieved, and they would even try to create the pain of others to try to relieve their own pain. Veronica herself had such a personal experience in the past. Fortunately, this girl still retained a trace of sunshine in her heart, even if she had fallen into the abyss of despair, just like Veronica back then. Compared with the many hardships she had witnessed, some experiences were actually nothing. It was just like the flame of life in the universe, only fleeting and indistinct. Living on itself was a kind of touching and meaning, even if it was just a moment of youth. Life was so short, but so long. From birth to growth to death, there would be countless joys, sorrows, and joys. The feelings, and perceptions at each stage would be different. Today's absoluteness might seem like a relative tomorrow. As long as there was faith and hope, one could walk out of the haze again. Under Veronica's guidance, Tiffany mastered the trick of using the power of the oracle. She said the first sentence. "Thank you." In the next few days, Tiffany seemed to have put aside the pain in her heart, and just devoted herself to the work of the oracle, passing on faith and supporting the weak. Veronica knew that she was actually just temporarily forgetting, and it was impossible to really let it go. but she believed that in the process of helping others to build hope, her heart would really come into contact with hope. This was a successful start. In the last 2 days, Tiffany, who had fully mastered the power of the oracle, and Veronica acted separately. However, due to her lack of experience, Tiffany was still inadequate in the distribution of limited power, so the scene just now happened. Veronica, If a person loses his life goal, what should he do? I've lost it too, but losing doesn't mean everything, and it doesn't mean losing everything. Some things don't belong to you, and maybe you should feel lucky. My experience is to extend your soul, find a more important life goal, and then learn to let go of some of the past losses. Veronica and Tiffany walked and talked as they walked hand in hand towards the hall of the Galaxy Divinity Temple. They just happened to see Chinray appear at the door. Chinray, you're right on time. It's not that I'm in time, but that her body can't wait any longer. Chinray's gaze swept over the two holding hands, and he smiled. I'm very happy to see some gratifying changes. Well, Tiffany, now is the last time. Before you make a decision, let me make it clear that as a friend, well, maybe this friend is just my wishful thinking. But in any case, I will respect your choice. Tiffany lowered her head, her lips moved, and she finally spoke. What if I want to stay here? Then you will lose the chance to leave forever. Tiffany raised her head. If I leave here, what can I bring you? Veronica smiled slightly. It seems that a certain friend is not wishful thinking. I believe you already know something before. To be precise, you will become the Empress of the Bloody Empire and… Chinray shrugged. You will be my wife. This is the condition of the Three Empires Alliance. I'm sorry. To put it bluntly, this is a political marriage. Tiffany fell silent and didn't speak again. I think she still wants to stay. Veronica said something unexpected to Chinray. Because staying can let her find the meaning of her life again. Tiffany nodded, but she heard Veronica's tone changed. However, Tiffany, have you ever thought that as an oracle, the power we can exert is quite limited? What if it is as an empress? Tiffany was shocked, and her eyes showed a light of realization. What's more, you are not alone. Although I can't help you, I will always be by your side. Veronica held her hand and looked at Chinray. And I am not your only friend. You will take care of and love her, right? Chinray. I promise. The tone of these 3 words was extremely solemn. Tiffany couldn't help but think of the most profound scene in her heart. The outstretched hand and the sentence, "Come with me." Then she saw that person reach out to her again. Tiffany's heart involuntarily sped up a little. In a moment of confusion, it seemed that some scenes in her memory overlapped. Slowly, her hesitant fingertips finally touched that touch of warmth, and her consciousness suddenly became hazy. There was no love, no friends, nothing else. There was only value, the only value. For 100 years, in that lonely and indifferent environment, her personality was split into 2. One was eager to accept others and eager to be recognized. Tiffany, whom Chinray first met at the Bloody Empire Trade Fair, belonged to this personality. The other was to protect herself and reject all approaches. Chinray had seen this Tiffany in Mountain Secret. Later, when she was imprisoned in the mysterious place and the holy mountain, it was this personality. The man in front of her was the first to touch her heart. It was not some kind of love, but a simple touch. The eager personality had a very sensitive mind. She could perceive that the previous second Prince Edmund, or the little Prince Terrace, had a special intention or purpose for approaching her. In fact, even in the face of her mother Eudora, she also felt a shuddering fear in her heart, but she was more blinded by the family she longed for many years. It was not until the moment she was personally subdued by Eudora that she really gave up. This man was the only one who truly wanted to help her. Even if there was no commission or political marriage, his previous answer came from the bottom of his heart. Chinray was his name. The indifference in her eyes gradually faded and was replaced by a soft look. Can I still go to that world? Can I still see her? Veronica was also a person who purely wanted to help her, and be close to her. Although it was only less than 7 days, she was already the person she trusted the most. It is certain that I can no longer enter with the power of the soul detaching. Maybe I will change to another method. If there is a chance, I think I can fulfill this wish. The current 2-star strengthening had not yet been completed, so Chunrei could not be sure about some things. He could only answer vaguely. Of course, if Tiffany really became his wife, then he would definitely not be stingy with the powerful benefits of the super system. Thank you? Tiffany bowed. This was obviously the first time Chunrei saw the girl. She looked timid. Her light blue eyes contained undisguised sadness. After all, it was one thing to be able to figure it out, but it was another thing to really dilute the pain. No matter what, she finally took the first step. What you need most now is to go back to the room and have a good sleep. Chunrei nodded. When you are completely ready, I will take you to the fallen angel capital to meet Empress Jia first, then send you back to the Bloody Empire. I don't want to give you a time limit, but since you have chosen your own path, then some things have to be faced sooner or later. Tiffany obviously still had a considerable rejection of going back in her heart. She bit her lip gently and said in a low voice, who did I see? Is it the future Her Majesty Empress? A charming voice sounded from behind, and the tone was deliberately raised. Inni. Chunrei naturally didn't need to look back to recognize the owner of the voice. Isabella stepped forward and looked at Tiffany a few times. Just as she wanted to say a few sarcastic words as usual, she suddenly found some changes. She stopped abruptly and didn't continue. Tiffany didn't know the past between Isabella and Eudora. She just bowed to Isabella timidly and walked toward the house. Your Majesty Empress seems to finally come out from the shadow of hiding. Isabella took Chunrei's arm and said with some jealousy. In this way, all 3 Her Majesty Empresses have been collected. The unique Royal Highness Prince Consort in the entire demon realm. Chunrei smiled slightly. Beautiful Ms. Inni, you seem to have something to say just now. Isabella snorted softly. I seem to be a little soft-hearted. It should be natural for a daughter to pay her mother's debt. That's my Yini, the one and only. Chunrei put his arm around her waist and sniffed the seductive fragrance. I suddenly want to drink the bitter drink. I wonder if I can invite a beautiful lady to accompany me? Humph, if you make the tea, your wish is the direction my long sword points to, beautiful lady. Under the moonlight, 2 figures leaned against each other and walked slowly. Their shadows merged into one. In the next few days, Tiffany no longer sat in the shadow, but she hid in the room most of the time every day. She also ate her meals in the room. She seemed to be afraid to come out and meet everyone. The opportunity to change happened one afternoon. Ms. Duo was clamoring to play a role-playing game, but one person was missing. With Ms. Duo's help, Tiffany finally joined the game. Although it was just a cameo with a few lines, and she even said the wrong words because she was nervous, it was the easiest and happiest afternoon in Tiffany's memory. For dinner that day, Tiffany appeared at the dining table in the yard for the first time. Although Tiffany rarely spoke after that, she was no longer an outsider in this yard after all. 7 days later, Tiffany finally decided to follow Chunrei to the fallen angel capital. As Chunrei said, some things had to be faced sooner or later, but she would never forget those days as an oracle. This would become an experience that would affect her life. When saying goodbye to everyone, Tiffany cried. She cried very sadly. Duo naturally cried along. Then, Tiffany followed Chunrei into the space leading to the outskirts of the fallen angel empire in the Rainbow Valley with a lowly princess. Alice was originally asked by Jia to study at the newly organized Fallen Angel Academy, but a lowly obviously didn't want to live that kind of controlled life. She came to the Dark Moon to visit Athena and didn't go back. The original 3-day deadline was delayed to more than 10 days. Jia, who couldn't bear it, finally issued an ultimatum. This time, she was caught by Chunrei and brought back together. Alice held Chunrei's arm tightly, which was equivalent to declaring some kind of ownership. Unfortunately, Tiffany on the side didn't seem to care. The lowly princess couldn't help but feel a little depressed. Her eyes looking at Tiffany were full of vigilance. Why does this Tiffany become my brother's wife? Just because she is Raisin's daughter? The future empress of the bloody empire? I, the princess, and my brother are childhood sweethearts, I think. We have gone through hardships, but we haven't fully succeeded so far. The book says that kissing is just a prelude to sex. The revolution has not succeeded yet, so the girl still has to work hard. But, why can Tiffany get something for nothing? Like this? In fact, Alice wasn't that kind of pure malice. In fact, she even cried a lot with Tiffany just now. As the mortal enemy of the big-breasted alien girl, the airport star girl, and Tiffany, the ordinary-breasted alien girl, could also be regarded as friendly neighbors. They could form a strategic alliance, but it involved an important marriage with the brother star, so she must not show weakness. Just as the airport star girl was thinking nonsense, Chinray suddenly rolled up his sleeves and looked at an accessory on his wrist. The accessory was flashing with a strange light. Chinray looked surprised because this was a warning signal for help. And the person who sent the signal was Jia. This was too sudden. He could hardly imagine what kind of emergency would make Jia, the Empress of the Fallen Angel Empire, activate this kind of signal. Chinray's reaction was extremely fast. He immediately activated the space artifact, the Tower of Glory, and kept Tiffany and Alice into the space. Then, he teleported with all his strength toward the palace of the Fallen Angel capital. Chapter 1046. Fallen Angel Palace Hall. Jia on the throne had already stood up and was looking at the three people in front of her vigilantly. 2 men and 1 woman. One of the 2 men was tall, and the other was short. The burly man had short purple hair, a beard, high eyebrows, and his eyes looked deeper. The other long-haired man was thin and small. On his sharp face, a pair of eyes flashed with malicious intent as he sized up Jia. In the middle of the 2 men was a blonde woman with a more plump figure. Judging from her position, she should be the leader. Her eyes were closed, and her expression looked very arrogant, as if she was disdainful to open them. The defense of this palace is much stronger than I thought. It seems that the Fallen Angel Empire still has a bit of foundation. The burly man looked around and nodded approvingly. The defensive magic circle seems to contain the mystery of ancient runes. It's not simple. Ordinary kingdomized powerhouses may not be able to break through. So what? The thin man showed a disdainful expression on his face. He was playing with a trace of cold air in his hand. In such a strong nest, what lives is just a group of ants. At the entrance and outside the hall, ice sculptures could be seen everywhere. They were all frozen lamp spirits. Even the strongest dark red lamp spirit, Manly's with S++ strength, was among them. It could be seen that the power of these 3 people had far exceeded the scope of ordinary powerhouses. The blonde woman still didn't speak, and the thin man said, "Let me introduce myself first. This is Madame Eski. My name is Tram, and he is Clomandus. We are here today to visit Her Majesty Empress." Jia took a deep breath. Breaking in is not the proper etiquette for a visit. Moreover, according to a certain convention, the 3 of you shouldn't appear here in this way. Don't be too self-righteous. If it weren't for you on this throne, you wouldn't be qualified to see us at all. Tram sneered. Clomandus showed a faint smile. It seems that Her Majesty Empress also knows something about the super powerhouses. It saves me a lot of talking. Jia asked calmly. What is the purpose of the 3 of you coming here? Please say it directly. The 3 of us were instructed by a great being to announce something to Her Majesty Empress, Trem said proudly. From today onwards, the Fallen Angel Empire will become the kingdom favored by the Darkness Temple. All the people in the country will believe in our Darkness Temple. Darkness Temple? This new term stunned Jia. The Temple of Darkness is a priesthood church that serves the demon god. It has always been hidden in the mortal world. Now that the 3 empires of the demon world have formed an alliance, the demon world has shown a rare atmosphere of peace. The demon god has specially sent down a miracle. The Temple of Darkness will guide all the people of the demon world, unify their faith, and be forever favored by the demon god. For countless years, the people of the demon realm have worshipped and believed in demon god, but they have never heard of the name Darkness Temple. Who is the great being you are talking about? The great being is the true god of the demon god. Angel of Empire. Up. God, darkness him. Angel. The god is darkness. It seems that the fallen angel empire is not the only destination of the three of you. Yes, the three empires will become the vassal states of the Darkness Temple. This is an irresistible trend. Clomandus nodded. The fallen angel empire is currently the most powerful of the three empires, so it is also our first stop. As far as I know, the super powerhouse above the demon overlord can't easily interfere with the world of ordinary people. Jia frowned slightly. That great being openly interferes with the order of the entire demon realm. Isn't he afraid? You don't seem to understand one thing. Tram interrupted Jia impatiently. Power determines order. When the Darkness Temple's favor spreads throughout the demon realm, it will re-establish the real order. The temple will become the defender of the entire order and protect all the favored forces. These things have nothing to do with your level. You just need to convey the will of the temple to the ordinary people and ensure that the faith of Demon God can spread to every corner of the empire. Please forgive me for being straightforward. Demon God has always been the highest belief of the vast majority of people in the demon realm, but it is not controlled by some unknown organization. As an empress of an empire, first of all, I can't force everyone to believe, and I won't accept such a request from the three of you. What an ignorant woman! Tram said sternly. Although you are a high and mighty empress in front of others, you are nothing in front of us. We don't mind erasing those ants who don't know how to appreciate favors. At most, we will support a more obedient puppet to take the throne. Yes, Your Majesty Empress, please note that we are not here to discuss with you, but to announce, or call it an order. Clomandus's tone was more polite, but the meaning was not polite at all. Sir Clomandus, you are from the fallen angel royal family, right? Jia stared intently at Clomandus' purple eyes. Although I don't know if you are a member of the royal family or a powerhouse of any generation, as a royal family, are you willing to let the fallen angel empire be controlled like this? Clomandus smiled indifferently. If you can step into the super demon one day, you will know that power, bloodline or race are just fleeting clouds. Power is the most important. Joining the Darkness Temple will not affect your interests. On the contrary, you can get more unimaginable benefits. Considering that we are both from the fallen angel bloodline, I will also give you the corresponding care. Compared with this red face, Tram was obviously playing the role of the bad guy. He looked at Jiao with an undisguised strong desire in his eyes. I forgot to tell you that I am a royal descendant of the Beelzebub royal family. I have always had a special hobby for the royal women of the fallen angel royal family, especially a woman who looks cold like you. What I love to do the most is to use abuse to turn that seemingly unattainable coldness into pleading and wailing. If you are really smart, you will obey my orders honestly. Otherwise, I am looking forward to having one more in my collection. Tram's insulting threat made Jia's face change slightly. Her eyes showed strong anger. At this moment, Her Majesty Empress's eyes suddenly lit up. Her anger and nervousness gradually faded and were replaced with calmness. Okay. Tram, put away your so-called hobby. The Darkness Temple is the most important thing. The blonde woman Aisha, who had been closing her eyes, stopped Tram. She finally opened her eyes slowly, and a cold electric light penetrated straight into Jia's eyes. Now officially tell me your answer. Jia. Lucifer, you only have one chance. That terrifying gaze carried a kind of spiritual power that made the soul tremble, and it went straight toward Shay. Even if Jia did not agree, Aisha had absolute confidence to control this empress with spirit power. Although this was only a bad plan, and it would consume a lot of power, at least she could complete the mission given by the Sir. Suddenly, a warning sign appeared in Aisha's heart. Before she could react subconsciously, she felt that her eyes containing powerful spirit power looking at Jiao were reflected back by some incredibly powerful force. Her eyes suddenly felt like they were being pricked by needles. She snorted and covered her eyes. Blood actually dripped from between her fingers. The feeling of being pricked penetrated into the soul. This is an out-and-out spirit backlash. It should be caused by the rebound of a force several times stronger. Aisha was secretly horrified. She tried her best to suppress the pain in her soul and forced her eyes open. In her blurry vision, it seemed like Tram's figure was retreating. His body kept making explosive sounds. When her vision became slightly clearer, Tram had already fallen to the ground and could not get up. He covered his head in pain, and the ground was full of exploding blood. The exploding blood flowers were the blood-sucking demonic flies that Tram created by combining the talents of the Beelzebub family and the kingdom with his secret treasure. They were connected with his soul and could suck the enemy's flesh and soul. They were not affected by ordinary attacks and were almost indestructible. The scene in front of her was clearly that the blood-sucking demonic flies had been completely annihilated by some special power of laws. Tram's soul was also severely injured because of this. Although Clomandus was still standing there, his feet were deeply sunk into the ground. The holy wings that appeared on his back gradually dimmed, and his face looked extremely pale as if he had lost the ability to move. Aisha was secretly shocked. Her gaze fell on a figure that appeared out of thin air next to Jia. This was an ordinary-looking man. Even if she stared at him like this, it was difficult to leave a definite impression in her heart. She could only feel the vast and powerful aura faintly emanating from those black eyes that she needed to look up to or even worship. Aisha had only sensed this kind of feeling from a certain existence, but that person was the strongest existence below gods. This person in front of her should only have the strength of a demigod like her, but he was just more powerful than her. Illusion! It must be just an illusion. Aisha secretly used her power to quickly recover from the backlash. She composed herself and said, "This is very surprising. I did not expect there to be such a powerful demigod in the palace of the fallen angel empire. Please allow me to express my respect and apology to your excellency." The person who appeared next to Jia was naturally Chenrei, who had rushed over. Chenrei glanced at Aisha coldly. "Put away that fake politeness. I'm never polite to those who are truly rude. I came a little late, and I only heard about the Sanctum of Darkness and someone's hobby. If you have any last words, you'd better say them now. Otherwise, you won't have the chance later. It was just a misunderstanding just now. I admit that you're a formidable powerhouse, and you should already be a peak demigod." Aisha was fearless and did not show much fear. "But your excellency should know that demigod is not the end of the superclass. What I represent is an existence with true peak power. We're here today not to become enemies with the fallen angel empire and your excellency. On the contrary, we're here to bring good news. With your excellency's strength, if you can join the Sanctum of Darkness, you'll definitely become an existence valued by that, sir." "That, sir?" Jia on the side explained the situation to Chenrei in the most concise language. Chenrei raised his brows. Sanctum of Darkness. Unifying faith? Why does it sound so familiar? This is clearly the behavior of the holy mountain of light in the human world. The reason why the three angels, Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel, controlled the holy mountain of light was that they had the book of creation that could steal and transfer faith for their own use. If this so-called Sanctum of Darkness wanted to replicate this stealing mode of the holy mountain of light, they definitely needed a treasure equivalent to the book of creation. The book of destruction. Or, just an incomplete book of destruction. Then the "sir" mentioned by the other party. Chapter 1047. Satan. It must be Satan. He already had 2 silver boxes, which meant that he had collected 2/3 of the Book of Destruction. Satan had obtained a silver box in the fight many years ago. After getting the second silver box from the mysterious place this time, he seemed to be unable to restrain his ambition that had been hidden for many years, and he began to extend his hand to the 3 empires of the demon realm. Although he did not know what secret techniques Satan had used to use the incomplete Book of Destruction, he was certain that there was a huge flaw in it. The establishment of the Temple of Darkness might have been a plan to target Ben Hong. He wanted to use this to draw out the last silver box. Unfortunately, Satan did not know that the 3rd silver box was no longer in Ben Hong's hands. Even Ben Hong himself had become someone's servant. Seeing that Chen Rui seemed to withdraw his power, Eski was relieved and continued to talk about the benefits of joining the Darkness Temple. Although she was not the opponent of this peak demigod powerhouse, she also had 1 or 2 secret techniques to escape. More importantly, she had a great backer behind her, so she was fearless. Tram and Clomandus on the side finally recovered some strength. Judging from Eski's conversation, the other party turned out to be a peak demigod. They couldn't help but be shocked. Chen Rui patiently waited for Eski to finish speaking, and he asked faintly, "Are you from Mountain Secret?" Out of some considerations, Eski did not mention her true origin before. She did not expect the other party to know her origin in one sentence. She was shocked at the moment. You. This shocked expression had already told Chen Rui the exact answer. Chen Rui nodded slowly. "It turns out to be Satan. You finally can't stand it anymore? Since you know Mountain Secret, you still dare to call Sir Satan's name directly." The first to jump out and clamor was Tram. The blood-sucking demonic flies that he painstakingly condensed were completely annihilated by this mysterious demigod with a wave of his hand. It was almost impossible to recreate the blood-sucking demonic flies. It would be a lie to say that he did not hate Satan, and it was even more impossible to retaliate with his own power if this mysterious powerhouse stood on the opposite side of Sir Satan. Then even the peak demigod would only end up being easily killed by Sir Satan. Since this demigod knew how powerful Satan was, he naturally did not dare to act rashly. Eski also had a shocked and angry expression on her face, but part of it was directed at Tram. She knew very well what Tram's intention was for making such a ruckus, and she was even more displeased with this guy. Tram had been too active along the way, wanting to take credit for himself. He had completely forgotten that the person in charge this time was her, a demigod master. Clomandus, on the other hand, kept a low profile and seemed much more sensible. Chen Rui glanced at Tram. His indifferent gaze was like an endless whirlpool, causing Tram's heart to tremble. It was as if his soul was about to be sucked in. He involuntarily cried out in fear. "Even if you are a demigod, in front of Lord Satan, you are just an ant. If you dare..." Before he could finish his words, a dazzling purple light flashed, and an indescribable majestic power instantly filled the entire hall. "Ants?" Amidst the star-like light, a majestic voice rang out. These 2 short words made Tram feel like he was struck by lightning. His whole body shook violently, and he flew backward far away. His body made a muffled explosion in the air, and he instantly became a bloody man. He had fainted before he landed on the ground. At the same time, Clomandus was also severely injured. His body was embedded in a pillar, and all the bones in his body seemed to be broken. Eski's situation was better. Her body was dragged backward for more than 10 meters. Blood overflowed from her facial features, and her face was full of disbelief and horror. This is the power contained in just one sentence. Eski clearly felt the trembling of her soul under that terrifying pressure. This is by no means the power that a demigod can possess, nor is it an ordinary power of law. Power! It turns out that the faint premonition in my heart previously is not an illusion. This mysterious powerhouse is not a peak demigod, but a pseudo-god. No one would have thought that there is such a terrifying existence in the fallen angel palace. No wonder he dares to call Satan's name directly. "Honorable Sir!" Eski couldn't care less about suppressing her injury, and she quickly bowed deeply. "Since Sir is an old friend of Sir Satan, please forgive my previous rudeness for Sir Satan's sake." Eski knew that her life was hanging by a thread. A pseudo-god was incomparable to a demigod. If the other party wanted to kill her, she had no chance at all, so she immediately lowered her stance. You don't have to go to the other two empires anymore. Return directly to Mountain Sacred. The powerful voice continued to tremble Aski's soul. Bring me 2 sentences to Satan. Aski maintained the posture of bowing her head. Yes. First sentence, Michael is not a god yet. Aski might not understand the meaning of this sentence, but she believed that Satan must understand. Second sentence, I will personally go to Mountain Sacred to visit my old friend. Yes. The sweat on Aski's forehead mixed with the blood at the corner of her eyes and slid down, but she still did not dare to look up. What else does Sir want? If you continue to stay in the 3 empires, or you still want to go to the Bloody Empire and the Shadow Empire to try your luck, then I don't mind changing someone to go to Mountain Sacred to pass the message. Yes. Aski knew that she was lucky to save her life this time, so she stood up straight. You can leave now, but that person violated my taboo. Chunrei's gaze fell on the unconscious Tram. For Satan's sake, I can spare his life, but only his life, understand? Understood, sir. Aski walked to Tram's side. A cold light flashed across the blood-stained eyes, and a faint light appeared in her hands. Ah! The unconscious Tram was woken up by the intense pain. When he saw that all his limbs below his waist had disappeared, he immediately let out a shrill scream. Before he could finish screaming, his face had been slapped dozens of times, and he spat out a mouthful of teeth. Then, his entire body was sealed by some kind of power. He could only see the expression of extreme pain, but no sound could be heard. This was still because Tram's strength and physique were extraordinary. If it was someone else, they would have died from severe injuries after their lower body was cut off. Aski turned her head and asked respectfully, Sir, is this okay? Chunrei nodded slowly. In fact, he was a little surprised by Aski's ruthlessness, but when he came, he happened to hear Tram talk about his hobby for Jia, so he was already really angry. This could be considered as venting his anger. At this time, Clomandus also barely struggled out of the pillar slowly. Although he was seriously injured, he was not unconscious. He had seen everything just now, so he didn't dare to say more. He gathered his remaining strength and walked to Aski's side, grabbed Tram who only had half of his body left, and bowed to Chunrei together with Aski. The figures of the 3 gradually became thinner and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The purple starlight gradually disappeared, and the appearance of Chunrei was restored. He came to Jia's side. Are you okay? Under Chunrei's power, the lamp spirits outside recovered from their frozen state. Seeing their master appearing in the hall and the enemy disappearing, they let down their vigilance and began to clean up and rearrange the defense. You came much faster than I thought. Jia shook her head gently, and her purple eyes stared straight at his face. It's just that I don't know when you have such a level of deterrence. Even the super rank. That woman's strength should be demigod, right? Seeing you is like a mouse seeing a poisonous snake. Poisonous snake? Your Majesty Empress metaphor seems to be getting sharper and sharper. Chunrei laughed and held her hand. Do you want to find a bedroom now, and I will confess everything to your Majesty without reservation? Bedroom? As a wife, how could Jia not see the wretchedness in that smile? The so-called confession was actually naked confession. She snorted coldly. It seems that you have confessed to many people before you came? I was confessed, okay? Chunrei smiled bitterly. You also have Kia's booklet, right? That thing is such a scam. When Jia heard the words, booklet, her face finally couldn't be cold anymore. 2 blushes appeared on her cheeks which looked exceptionally charming. If another minister was here, it would be hard to believe that this shy woman was the usually cold and majestic Empress. Her Majesty Empress quickly calmed down again and regained her indifference. What do you think of the Darkness Temple this time? Can we not talk about business first? You looked very charming just now. Hee, I was wrong. This is also very charming. Let's talk about private matters first. Of course. Chunrei winked at her. After returning this time, because he was busy preparing for some things, it was the first time he saw Jia, so he naturally missed her very much. Okay, then what about your future Empress wife? When are you going to hold the wedding? Actually, Tiffany, Her Majesty Blood Empire Empress's wedding, Her Majesty Shadow Empress naturally can't favor one and discriminate against the other, right? It should be a wedding that will cause a sensation in the demon realm. Congratulations, Your Royal Highness, you have once again become the focus of the entire demon realm. Catherine, can we not talk about the Empress? Okay, let's not talk about the Empress. Let's talk about the Princess. What about my sister Princess Royal Highness, who is fascinated by you and won't marry anyone but you? Let's talk about business. Shenrui was sweating from the sharp Her Majesty Empress's private matters. Didn't you say to talk about private matters first? Jia's purple eyes flashed with a rare mischievous look. Okay, let's talk about business. You speak, I'm listening. The Darkness Temple has nothing to do with Demon God or anything. It's just a product of someone's ambition. Speaking of this, Shenrui's expression also became a lot more solemn. The demon realm finally ushered in today's peace and tranquility with great difficulty. There are a lot of painstaking efforts from you, me, and others. I will never allow anyone to meddle with it. The mountain secret you mentioned before, I seem to have heard of it somewhere. By the way, it's Oliphius. Shenrui nodded. Yes, that Satan should be the most terrifying powerhouse in the demon realm. He is the strongest person below God level. What he wants to do is to imitate the Church of Light of the three supreme angels in the human world and establish the Darkness Temple to steal faith in an attempt to covet the path of gods. Jia looked worried. Such a powerful enemy, I'm indeed not his opponent, but you can rest assured that your man is not a fool. I won't fight that guy head on. I will make a comprehensive plan. I only remember that in the Warlock Fortress, there was a fool who clearly knew that he was going to die, but he still fought with reason desperately. Speaking of the past, the coldness in Jia's eyes had long melted into a faint gentleness. You have to remember, no matter what, you must live, for me and for all those who love you. Shenrui thought of the order that was still deeply remembered, and his heart became soft. He held the beautiful face and kissed the two red jade-like cherry lips. Jia did not resist. She closed her eyes gently, and she was naturally immersed in the sweet feeling of their lips and tongues intertwining. After a long time, Jia, can I stay here for a few days? And, you wear that tonight, okay? Ouch. Okay, I won't wear it. You can wear whatever you want. Facing her sister's righteous preaching, the little Princess Royal Highness had tears in her eyes. She reluctantly agreed to the admission. Before she set foot on the execution ground, on the road to the academy, she didn't forget to throw a flying dagger in front of her sister. She hugged her brother-in-law desperately, kissed for a minute, and ran away in tears. If looks could kill, her brother-in-law would have been riddled with holes under her sister's gaze long ago. Although Shenrui appeared in time this time to stop the Darkness Temple from extending its dark hand to the three empires, it was certain that Satan would never be fooled by a few words, and he would never give up. The current situation was not optimistic. The three empires were sitting here and could not move or hide. Shenrui's knowledge of Satan was only in the mountain secret north of the Bloody Empire. He didn't know how much strength he had. It could be said that the enemy was in the dark while he was in the light. Satan might come to the door again at any time. It would not be so easy next time. The so-called visit to the mountain secret was just a trick to distract and delay. However, if this continued, there would be a head-on conflict between Shenrui and Satan sooner or later. In the face of absolute strength, all schemes were just fleeting clouds. Although Purple Polar Transformation had 4 powers and various special abilities, it couldn't compete with the peak of Pseudo-God after all, especially one of the strongest peaks Pseudo-God. In fact, Shenrui still had a strong support, which was Ben Hong, a powerhouse who used to be in the same period as Satan. Although Ben Hong was only left with a soul body and was seriously injured, and she was still sleeping in the super system to recover, she was a peak pseudo-god after all. With her help, he had more confidence in fighting against Satan. However, the most important thing was his own power. This advancement gave Chinrui a very special feeling. It seemed that there were many wonderful uses that had not been comprehended. In other words, there was still a lot of potential and room for improvement. What he needed now was time to further master the mystery of purple polar transformation, especially the purple polar transformation. Jia proposed that the three empires' heads immediately convene an emergency meeting to inform Catherine and Raisin about the Darkness Temple and discuss countermeasures. This proposal was immediately approved by Chinrui. The meeting method this time was very characteristic of the times, which was a video conference. Nowadays, the communication between the three emperors could be completed using the dedicated signal tower of the magic television. This kind of video conference was not a simple flat image, but a holographic image like in a magic game created by a special magic helmet. Although it required a part of the caster's spirit power, Jia, the weakest among the three emperors, had also reached the peak stage of the demon overlord level. This bit of spirit power was nothing. In a virtual conference room, dungeon, Chinrui, who accompanied Jia to the meeting, met Raisin and Catherine whom he hadn't seen for a long time. "Your Majesties, I haven't seen you for a long time." Raisin's eyes immediately fell on Chinrui's face. "This face. I have a deep impression of it." It turned out that Chinrui did not use the face of Aguil this time, but he removed the camouflage and revealed the true face of Arthur. As Raisin said, this face was no stranger to many people in the demon realm. He even used someone's real name on Earth, Chinrui. "As you can see, Raisin," Chinrui shrugged. "This is my true face without any camouflage or transformation." "True face?" This sentence shocked Raisin. "Are you a human or a demon?" "It doesn't matter whether I'm a human or a demon. The reason why I show my true face to you today represents an open and honest attitude." Raisin took a deep breath, looked at Jia and Catherine who were calm, and frowned. "It seems that I'm the latest person to know the secret." "Raisin, you don't have to worry about it." Catherine smiled sweetly. Her eyes were rippling. "Even as this guy's woman, it took me several years to try my best to see through his true identity. Someone is more cunning than I thought." Raisin snorted coldly. "This can also explain the reason why the once famous human financial officer disappeared in recent years. There are rumors that he has died secretly, but no one thought that the person actually changed a more prominent and shocking identity. Should I call you Aguil? Or Chinrui? My real name should be Arthur Roland, the second prince of the Holy Empire in the human world. This time I went to the human world, and I also got a special identity, which is the Holy Son of the Church of Light and the next Light Pope." Even though Raisin never showed his emotions, he couldn't help but be moved again at this moment. He once participated in the army to crusade against the human world, so he knew a little about the distribution of the human world's forces. The Church of Light is a clerical institution that controls the entire human empire and kingdom. It has supreme authority. This Arthur actually became the future Light Pope. Let me explain first. It was an accident that I came to the demon realm. I lost my memory and power, and I didn't have any special intentions. And now, I'm a demon realm person. This is my home with my most cherished family. In the future there will be no Arthur, only Chinrui." As Chinrui spoke, he glanced at Jia and Catherine. The two empresses felt warm in their hearts, and their eyes showed undisguised affection and happiness. "As for my identity, whether it's the Prince of the Holy Empire, the Holy Son of the Church of Light, or the future Light Pope, it has now become history. I'm now the most wanted criminal in the Holy Mountain of Light." "Because of Tiffany?" Raisin vaguely guessed it, and he asked rhetorically. "Almost. Her experience is very unfortunate. She was betrayed by her dearest person. I believe you should understand that feeling very well. Even without your commission, I won't just stand by. As for the power or interest in the human world, it's not worth mentioning to me." Chinrui didn't stay on this matter for too long, but he changed to a key topic. "Darkness Temple. This is our focus today and the most critical issue. When Raisin heard that Tiffany was betrayed by her dearest person, he raised his eyebrows, but soon, his attention was attracted by Chenrei's next words about the Darkness Temple. After just a few words, the expressions on Catherine and Raisin's faces looked serious. It's actually Satan. Raisin frowned. He was very clear about Satan's horror. Satan once controlled him to have sex with Eudora, gave birth to Tiffany, and then took Tiffany away. For this, he had no power to resist at all. Even he, who had now stepped into the superdemon, didn't have any power to resist. Satan has obtained some kind of treasure that can transfer part of the people's faith in the gods to himself in an attempt to covet the path to becoming a god. This is his real intention in planning the Darkness Temple. Chenrei sighed. This ambition should have been brewing for many years. Taking Tiffany as a disciple is also one of his plans to get a part of that treasure. He has succeeded in this step. Therefore, Satan will never give up this intention easily. Although the person sent this time was scared away by me, I'm afraid it won't be so easy next time. Raisin frowned for a long time, and he said in a deep voice, I've never been a person who gives up easily, but I have to say something discouraging here. If the opponent is really that person, we have no chance at all. I don't know if you have heard the rumors of Satan before. This is a super powerhouse of the peak fake god. He is probably the most powerful fake god in the demon realm. He is known as the man closest to the demon god. Peak fake god! Catherine couldn't help but be shocked. Raisin is right. In the face of absolute power, no matter how exquisite the strategy is, it is useless. If the enemy is the peak fake god, even if the three empires join forces to fight against him, there is no chance of winning. Chenrei said. Now is not the time to lose confidence. As for Satan, no matter how close he is to a god, he is not a god after all. The peak fake god is not completely unrivaled. Raisin raised his eyebrows. What do you mean? It's what you understand. Chenrei spread his hands. I said that I'm being honest today, so I don't want to hide it. I have faced two supreme angels of the peak fake god in the Holy Light Mountain. One of them is Archangel Michael, who is also known as the person closest to a god. This Sir Angel hates me to the bone now, but unfortunately, I'm still alive and well. As for the other supreme angel, Raphael, I saved Tiffany from him. Raisin and Catherine were shocked at the same time. The continuous surprise made Raisin unable to keep calm. He stood up suddenly. You are already a fake god. This, Aguile, was once an opponent who was easily defeated by Raisin. Later, in the Alchemy Master competition, he showed the power of a kingdom level, which was why Raisin paid attention to him. However, in the Demon Realm Martial Arts Conference, Raisin, who wanted to defeat Aguile in the finals, encountered the demigod Black Dragon Lalaria in the quarterfinals and was easily defeated. What shocked Raisin was that in the subsequent semifinals, Aguile actually broke out with the power of a kingdom and defeated Lalaria incredibly. The final became the family reunion of Aguile and Catherine. Since then, Raisin had been taking Aguile as his goal, and he kept training hard. As Byakuya said, he was actually more suitable to be a martial artist. Under the general trend of the Demon Realm Alliance's unification, Raisin had the idea of abdicating. He wanted to concentrate on training, so he entrusted Chenrei to find his daughter, Tiffany. Who would have thought that his opponent would once again leave him far behind? For a kingdom level, demigod was almost an insurmountable chasm, and fake god was simply an unreachable sky. My strength actually comes from some kind of ancient inheritance. The level division is a little different. It should be said that I have the power to compete with fake god. But to be honest, I still can't match the peak of fake god. If I really face Satan, I can only run away. Just like in the Holy Light Mountain this time, if I escape slowly, I'm afraid I won't be able to come back. Being able to escape from the peak of fake god is enough to show your current combat power level. Catherine glanced at Jiao with her beautiful eyes. However, I seem to be the last to get this news, Your Royal Highness. In fact, it's not too late. Shenrui shrugged. If you don't believe me, you can ask Jia. She just learned about it. Unfortunately, Her Majesty Fallen Angel Empress didn't seem to hear it. She didn't mean to prove it at all, making Royal Highness speechless for a while. Raisin's dissatisfied voice sounded. Humph. This is not the place to flirt. Although your power has reached the level of fake god, it is not enough to directly compete with Satan. Besides, Satan will definitely not give up. Let's discuss a countermeasure as soon as possible. Chapter 1049. After some discussion, the four of them reached a consensus to firmly resist the manipulation of the Temple of Darkness. From the previous experience of Jia, it could be seen that the purpose of the Temple of Darkness was to turn the three empires into puppets and tools to provide faith and unify faith by coercive means. Those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. Satan didn't care about whether the demon realm was peaceful or stable. He only cared about how to gather his book of destruction. If he deceived the world and stole faith for taboo, how could he embark on the path of gods? In the eyes of these so-called powerhouses, all ordinary people were ants, and it was natural for them to be slaughtered at will. It was just like what Raphael had said to Sas back at the main altar of terror. The three angels are the masters of this world. Even if someone were to destroy it, it would be us, not the abyss. What they cared about was who had the right to destroy this world, not how to protect this world. However, for the time being, this kind of confrontation could not be carried out head-on. Therefore, if Satan sent people to the three empires again, he could use various indirect strategies to delay time and shift the focus as much as possible. After all, even if the three emperors were forced to agree, it was not a matter of a day for the so-called Temple of Darkness to be truly established to the scale of the Church of Light. The strategy was only a temporary measure. If he wanted to truly eliminate Satan's intentions, he would have to face this powerful false god sooner or later. Shenrui's opinion was to try to buy as much time as possible. If it really didn't work, he could push the responsibility to him, the mysterious false god powerhouse, and then he would think of a solution. Just in case, Shenrui would set up an instant teleportation point, star point, in each of the three empires. As long as the corresponding distress signal was received, he could be teleported there instantly. After upgrading to the Purple Pole Star Emperor, the star points of the Star Gate increased from the original 4 to 7, and the effective time of the star point increased from 10 years to 50 years. Although the Star Gate still rejected people other than Shenrui, his current means were no longer comparable to the past. Not only could he use the star sealing platform to fuse people with star positions and directly enter the Star Gate, but he could also use the space artifact, the Tower of Glory, to travel. The Tower of Glory's kingdom fusion could fuse kingdoms to form a special space that could carry a large number of lifeforms and allow them to freely move through space. However, there was a limitation, and that was that they couldn't use kingdoms to fight or do other things while moving. Unless he had two kingdoms, one for fusion and the other for battle. For Shenrui, who had both the Four Seasons Kingdom and the Polar Star Kingdom, it was simply a tailor-made function. With the two lethal weapons in his hands, he had actually broken through the bottleneck that the Space Gate could not teleport people. The star point of the Dark Moon's residence had been transferred to the Fallen Angel Palace because it was only an instant from the Fallen Angel Palace to the Rainbow Valley in the suburbs. There was no need to repeat it. The star points on the Island of Storms and the peak of the Holy Mountain in the human world were still retained. The former was one of Shenrui's bases, and the latter was the Trojan horse backdoor of the Holy Mountain of Light. It could be kept for emergencies. There was also a star point set in the mysterious UFO land. For Shenrui, this would be a very important stop, and it was also the place where he planned to go next. The UFO land was not only the origin of the rule energy of the capital of stars, but it was also an excellent training and actual combat place. Of course, for ordinary cultivators, even demigod, this would be an extremely dangerous place. In addition to these 4 star points, according to the agreement, The next star point would be placed in the Bloody Empire and the Dark Shadow Empire, so in the end, Chenrei still had one star point left for maneuver. Although Raisin expressed doubts about Chenrei's so-called thinking of a way, there was no better countermeasure at present. Unless he was willing to surrender to Satan, he could only choose to believe. In order to further tie the Bloody Empire to the chariot of the Alliance, and more stably maintain the interests of the Empire, Raisin once again raised the topic of marriage. Chenrei thought for a while and let Tiffany appear in this virtual conference room. Facing her father Raisin, Tiffany showed the indifference of a passerby. It could be seen that this was the indifferent personality. Raisin was also expressionless. He just asked, "Did you see that woman?" "Yes." "Do you still want to see her again?" "No." "Okay, you should get the Bloody Empire ring. From now on, you are the Empress of the Empire. When you return to the Bloody Empire, I will immediately pass the throne to you." Tiffany didn't make a sound, but she looked at Raisin coldly. These few concise and cold dialogues made Chenrei and others on the side quite speechless. It was hard to imagine that this was a dialogue between a father and daughter who had not seen each other for a long time. Especially Raisin, he knew that his daughter was hurt miserably, and she almost lost her life, but he didn't even say a word of concern. He just said 3 sentences, and he directly put the heavy burden of an empire on her. When Raisin mentioned the Bloody Empire ring, Chenrei hesitated for a moment and said, "I need to explain one thing. About the Bloody Empire ring, when I used the ancient inheritance power to unlock Raphael's confinement, a small accident happened." "What?" Raisin almost jumped up after listening to 2 sentences. "You actually fused with the Bloody Empire ring? This is the highest artifact of the Mammon royal family." Chenrei was indeed in the wrong in this matter. "This is an accident. I promise that I will try to return the Bloody Empire ring to the Mammon royal family in the future." "Sure." Before Raisin continued to ask, Tiffany agreed directly. Raisin's eyes emitted a sharp light that fell on Tiffany's face. Tiffany met her father's gaze without avoiding and said word by word, "Is what you said just now effective?" Raisin stared at Tiffany for a moment and said coldly, "Of course it's effective. You have to remember, whether it is now or in the future, every word you say and everything you do represents the entire empire and millions of people, not yourself." "I know." "Then you should know that after ascending the throne, you will marry this man, right?" "I know." "Very good." Raisin snorted coldly. "Within 7 days you must rush back to the Bloody Empire." "I heard it." Tiffany didn't say much. She turned around and gradually disappeared. Chenrei sighed secretly. "I'll go with her. It just so happens that I'm going to the Bloody Empire capital to set up the teleportation point." Raisin took a deep look at him. "With your strength, many things don't have to be like this. I'm still the person you met for the first time outside the Jurgo Fortress plain, and I'm also the person in the Warlock Fortress. No matter how my strength changes, some things will not change." Chenrei smiled. Catherine and Jia looked at each other, and a moving smile appeared behind the veil. Jia's eyes also showed a touch of warmth. Raisin narrowed his eyes slightly. A strange expression flashed past his eyes. He nodded slowly as if he wanted to say something, but when his figure finally faded away, he still didn't speak. "He just wanted to ask you to take care of Tiffany." Jia sighed. "Unfortunately, he is Raisin." Catherine smiled and said, "But Raisin should be reassured because there is an Royal Highness who is very protective of the fairer sex. Not only protective of the fairer sex, but he can even risk his life for a woman and fight to death with the peak of pseudo-god." At this time, Jia did not show the virtue of silence being golden at all. "Especially beautiful women." Catherine smiled and added, "Tiffany is indeed a beautiful woman. I feel pity when I see her. It seems that Royal Highness' desire to collect beautiful women has not been satisfied. It was said that 3 women could make a show. Now with just 2, Royal Highness couldn't resist anymore, so he had to raise his hands and surrender." After the conference call ended, Chenrei was about to find Tiffany to discuss the departure to the Bloody Empire, but a familiar voice suddenly came to his mind. Chun-Rei! Where are you? This voice was Rala's. Chun-Rei couldn't help but be taken aback. Isn't Rala behind closed doors in the Rainbow Valley? How can there be a voice in my mind? Super system. Chun-Rei's mind moved, and he instantly entered the super system. To his surprise, he saw Rala in the hall of the Galaxy Divinity Temple. Before that, Rala had always been restricted within the scope of the Apotheosis platform. Even after being named as a star, she couldn't break through this restriction. Now, she actually appeared in the hall automatically. Next to Rala was Veronica. The two were not strangers. They used to be old friends in the Longhuang Empire, but they had always been vigilant before. Now that they met again in this place, there was naturally no barrier between them. They talked very casually. Rala, I didn't know you were so beautiful. Veronica praised sincerely. No wonder you had to cover your face with a veil before. Otherwise, you will definitely attract the attention of countless men. You are also very beautiful, Veronica. Aren't you already? Rala's purple eyes behind the glasses blinked. Why are you here? That guy actually secretly hid one in this place. I am indeed dead. Even my soul was almost completely annihilated. Later, a kind of supreme power in the universe made my soul recondense. When I woke up, I was already here. Veronica was very careful. She saw through Rala's careful thoughts and smiled slightly. I want to forget everything in the past and start a new life, so please Chun-Rei don't tell you and Inni. I'm now busy shuttling in this new world every day. I feel very fulfilled. I'm very grateful to him and thank you for your help. Grateful? It seems that she is Chun-Rei's first love, much earlier than Athena. Her soul was eroded by the abyss, and she was finally freed. Now she even lost her body. It's a bit miserable. Oh. Miss Long thought for a while, and her mind was a little clearer. At this time, she happened to see Chun-Rei appearing in the hall. She quickly greeted him happily. To be precise, she flew up. Rala! Chun-Rei caught Miss Long, who flew over. Rala seemed very excited. She hugged her neck and spun a few times with the momentum before stopping. Chun-Rei put down Rala, who was in his arms. Rala secretly glanced at Veronica, but found that the latter was only smiling at her and Chun-Rei. There was no pretense or reluctance in her smile, only comfort and warmth. Miss Long suddenly felt a little embarrassed. She heard Chun-Rei ask, Rala, why are you here? Speaking of this, Miss Long felt a little proud. She wrinkled her nose and said, Guess. 2-star enhancement. Chun-Rei immediately reacted. You've already succeeded? Chapter 1050. N. Rala looked at Chun-Rei's surprised look and nodded indifferently, but her heart was, oh ho 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 ho. Of course. I'm a genius among geniuses. I'm the first to complete this kind of 2-star enhancement. Although I don't know what it's used for, it looks very powerful. Learning Lala's laughter should be very appropriate now. Chun-Rei, who got a positive answer, was overjoyed. He quickly asked, How do you feel now? Also, can you enter this lookout temple freely after the enhancement is successful? And I don't know how to describe it either. Zola thought for a while. Do you still remember the feeling of soul splitting that I mentioned last time? Today, it seems like a part of my soul was really separated and was involuntarily sucked into the star ceiling platform, becoming one with the star god statue. I don't know how to leave, so I tried to call your name in my heart. I was thinking about what it's like outside the star ceiling platform, and I suddenly appeared in this hall. Soul splitting? Yes, I feel that my body is still in the Rainbow Valley. What entered here should only be a little of my soul, or consciousness. Rala's body is indeed still in the quiet room in the Rainbow Valley. What appeared in this lookout temple is only a trace of her soul, which can also be understood as a clone. My real body is still in another place, and what came here is only a trace of consciousness. This was different from the fusion of the star ceiling platform. Chun-Rei seemed to have grasped something crucial. As for the feeling, Rala looked at the vast galaxy in front of the Galaxy Divinity Temple, and the special feeling in her heart was getting stronger. It was as if she had become a part of this boundless universe. Birth, destruction, life, joy, anger, sorrow, this feeling was very wonderful. The soul was constantly being purified and integrated with the universe, and a new powerful force began to grow and fill up. Chunrui immediately sensed it: star power. Star power was a very special energy. Whether it was quality or quantity, it was far better than ordinary power. Paglio, whose strength was far better than Chunrui, had his skin broken by the first version of Aurora shot. With the improvement of strength, the particularity of star power became more and more obvious. Star power could also ignore the deterrence of high-level enemies in many cases, avoiding the situation of not being able to exert strength. At the level of Demon Emperor and Demon Overlord, the galaxy territory, based on star power, could break the rules and directly appear in any enemy's territory. This was no longer an ordinary power, but it was similar to the existence of laws and rules. Now star power had fused with the special energy of faith and life. Whether it was the kingdom or the power of power, it could play a far better role than ordinary energy. This was fully proven in the battle with Raphael. Now Zola unexpectedly had the star power unique to the super system that only Chunrui had. What does this mean? What Chunrui noticed was not only the star power. The feeling that Rala gave him was unprecedentedly special. It was as if she had merged with the super system and become a galaxy in this galaxy territory. No, not a separate galaxy, but a part of the composition. At this time, Veronica's voice sounded. Chunrui, let me interrupt your thoughts. As an oracle, I clearly feel that there is a special breath in Rala's star god statue now. This breath gives me a feeling of almost eternal vastness and greatness. It contains perfect and omnipotent rules. If it is according to the philosophy and theology I have mastered before, it may be called divinity. Divinity? The words used by Veronica surprised Chunrui and Rala at the same time. God? Chunrui remembered that in addition to the war projection, the star god statue had another important function, which was to project the projection to certain places of faith in the galaxy and become the core of the pillar of faith. It would receive the corresponding faith power, which was equivalent to the local God. This function had been unavailable, but now... I don't think this is just an illusion. Veronica smiled and said, Rala, I believe you have also felt that there is a special power calling your soul. This is the real reason why your soul automatically entered this temple. Rala nodded. Veronica was right. It was this feeling. Chunrui suddenly felt a significant change in another building. With a thought, the three of them had already appeared in front of the Tower of Faith. The towering Tower of Faith shone with an unprecedented light, and Rala's body also showed a corresponding light. It seemed to have formed a certain resonance. At the same time, there was also a special feeling in Chunrui's heart. In his eyes, the various sources of faith in the Tower of Faith seemed to be alive, and they began to merge and interweave into various new forms. Bravery, benevolence, wisdom, loyalty, greed, conspiracy, lust, one by one, the source light balls mixed with the law of faith appeared in his mind. Chunrui glanced at Rala as if he understood something, and he smiled. Veronica also smiled. As the highest level oracle, her understanding of the Tower of Faith was much more subtle than the relatively careless controller. However, judging from the cute smile of little Arthur, Chunrui, there was no need for her to say more. Chunrui didn't know that his smile, which was once ridiculed by his two bad friends as a collection of derogatory terms such as wretched, malicious, lascivious, and so on, would actually be labeled as cute by Sister Veronica. However, he had indeed figured out the whole thing and the reason for these changes. 2 stars of star strengthening, faith strengthening. Star God statue. Then, it was, Chunrui glanced at Rala, and a ray of light covered Miss Long the Fairy. Relax your mind and enter this Tower of Faith. Then, try your best to sense the various sources of faith in the tower, and choose the type that you are closest to or most responsive to for fusion. Miss Long the fairy naturally trusted Shenrui unreservedly. She let the light integrate into her body and was absorbed into the Tower of Faith. Shortly after entering, the light of the Tower of Faith suddenly increased by thousands of times. At the same time, the star god statue on the star-conferring platform also emitted a strong starlight. The entire statue was lightened, and it looked like countless dazzling light spots. Rala! Shenrui took a deep breath and looked at Miss Long the fairy who reappeared in front of him. How do you feel? Incredible! Rala looked at her hands in surprise, and then looked at the galaxy in the distance. I feel as if I have truly become a part of this universe, and I have the vast and enormous power of the stars. Now I should respectfully address you as. Veronica bowed slightly to Rala. The goddess in charge of knowledge. Goddess? Rala was stunned. With a slight thought, she felt that her consciousness had expanded countless times in an instant, and then divided into countless parts, extending in all directions and merging into this boundless space of the universe. As the highest controller of the Galaxy Divinity Temple, Shenrui was naturally aware of these changes. His gaze followed a portion of Rala's consciousness. In the blink of an eye, that consciousness had already penetrated the limits of space and landed on a planet with life. On that planet, many rays of light appeared, and within the light, a huge phantom appeared. This phantom was impressively Rala, surrounded by soft and crystalline starlight, and faintly emitted an aura as vast as the galaxy. The first impression she gave people was that she was perfect and eternal, just as Veronica had said, divinity. In any case, in this world, Rala was already the true god. Apatheized? Shenrui took a deep breath, and a special feeling rose in his heart. The absolute ruler, controlling the entire galaxy, manipulating all living beings, and even gods, on the planet, countless people scrambled to worship the miracle that suddenly appeared. The name of this great god, as well as the knowledge and faith she possessed, automatically appeared in people's hearts, especially those who were devout, who quickly obtained the corresponding power and understanding. With the efforts of the believers, temples, statues, and other related buildings of the goddess were quickly built. The original related pillars of faith also disappeared, fusing into the temples and statues. The construction of the temples allowed the divine power to be fully unleashed. Under the blessing of the divine power, the development of all kinds of knowledge and academics was greatly accelerated. Goddess Rala, who controlled knowledge, also absorbed a large number of believers who studied and researched knowledge in a short period of time. The prayers and faith of the believers turned into a strange energy that was fed back. Rala felt that this soul cleansing, from before, appeared again, and it became more intense. The power that filled her body, which was similar to the power of the stars, was also constantly being refined and strengthened. It wasn't only Rala who had this feeling. Shenrui also had this feeling. His feeling and the benefits he received were much stronger than Rala's. This was like a kind of MLM profit structure chart. The goddess, Rala, obtained power from the countless believers who went offline, and most of this power was fed back to the supreme god, at the top of the pyramid, Shenrui. Of course, this was determined by the universe architecture of the super system, and it couldn't be changed. Besides, just the power that Rala obtained was already enough for her to enjoy. After Rala became a god who controlled knowledge, Shenrui clearly noticed that his strength in all aspects had increased. This kind of enhancement couldn't be brought by training. It was equivalent to internal power, which was the material foundation that constituted the body. Training was equivalent to the tempering of external force, which could make this foundation stronger and more refined. The stronger the foundation, the stronger the tempering effect. This kind of foundation could continue to grow. This was the greatest mystery of Purple Polaris Emperor. Faith. If faith was still a relatively vague concept before that only stayed in the power of faith crystals and kingdoms, then it became particularly clear now. Faith was the source of the strengthening of the purple star rank and even reaching the next step of evolution. Chapter 1051. The light of the Tower of Faith lasted for dozens of seconds before gradually returning to its original state, but the changes in Rala's star god statue did not stop. The statue was no longer a sculpture, but a projection of a real person full of life and faith. The entire projection was made up of fine and detailed stardust. It had an ethereal and vast aura, as if an independent galaxy was being nurtured within it. This galaxy gave Chinray a faint sense of familiarity. It seemed that he had seen something similar in a mysterious place. The faith energy that was being fed back by the vast star territory made the star god's statue shine to an astonishing height. In the light, the form of the statue in the projection seemed to have undergone some kind of mutation. Chinray and Rala sensed this change at the same time. Chinray's face was full of surprise, while Rala, who had always been naturally dull, showed a rare ecstasy on her face. On the star-ceiling platform, the bright and dazzling light finally solidified, and at the same time, the power of faith stabilized. There was an additional exquisite and elegant full-body armor on Rala's star god statue, exuding an indescribable aura of power. Rala, who was in front of the Tower of Faith, looked at the armor on her body in surprise. She felt the vast power flowing through her body, and she seemed very excited. Not only that, but Miss Long could clearly feel that such an armor had also appeared on her real body in the Rainbow Valley. This was definitely not an illusion. Armor of Faith. After a super powerhouse stepped into the demigod realm, in addition to the true nation, there was another significant feature, which was that they could condense the armor of faith that national-level powerhouses did not have, which could greatly enhance their combat power. Ever since Rala broke through to the demigod realm in the Mage Tower Forest, she was now close to the middle stage of the demigod realm, but she was still unable to condense the armor of faith. Although there was a powerful artifact like the crown of the elemental goddess, which was almost equal to the power of the armor of faith, the armor of faith had always been a knot in Rala's heart. Now, she had finally successfully condensed the armor of faith, and its power was even above what she had expected, far surpassing the level of the demigods she had met before. How could Miss Long not be excited? If he were to face the eight-winged angel camel again, Miss Long was confident that she would be able to deal with him. At the very least, she would be able to escape unscathed, instead of being defeated in a single blow like before. Of course, Chinray was surprised because Rala was wearing a star armor. This star armor was different from Chinray's own shape, but it contained the same special star power with a strong enhancement. It could exert a powerful power several times his own. Chinray had a thought. True Star Queen, Rala Astral Deity Position, God of Knowledge Equip, 1. Law Soul Weapon, Removable, 2. Purple Star Transformation Star Armor, Detachable, Purple Star Transformation Divine Power Additional Power, 1. Armor Break, there is a chance to ignore the opponent's defense. 2. Focus, Immune to all mind control. Controller's Divinity, Cancel State, Recoverable. Controller's Piety, Cancel State, Recoverable. Heart Whisper, Soul Communication State Activated, can be turned off. Faith Fusion, 5%, Adjustable, Current Maximum. Star State, Divine Division. Location, Galaxy Divinity Temple. These data had some changes compared to before, including the addition of some functions. The previous ratio of faith had also been adjusted to the ratio of faith fusion. At present, 5% was the maximum upper limit that Rala could accept. The remaining 95% naturally went into the pockets of him and the super system. The life of the galaxy provided faith power. Chinray as the controller and the entire super system were strengthened by faith power. The higher the degree of strengthening, the more vigorous and powerful the life of the galaxy was. This was actually a cycle. On the other hand, if Chinray unfortunately died, then this universe, including everything, would turn into nothingness. I see. Chinray pondered for a long time, and he finally figured out some key issues. No wonder Rala had been unable to condense armor of faith. To be precise, when she received 1-star strengthening, her path had changed. She was no longer a cultivator with ordinary power levels in this world, but she had accepted the system of the super system. The soul weapon that Feng Xing obtained at that time, Rala's soul weapon state, was Secret Shadow. The short staff became a long staff, and the power was greatly increased, was equivalent to the initial form of faith equipment. The current purple star transformation armor was the second form of faith equipment. What? Rala asked curiously. I have to confess something to you, Rala. I know. Ah? Chenrei was stunned. You even know this? Rala glanced at Veronica and bit her lip gently. Don't you think your confession is a bit late? Humph, if I didn't enter here and discover the adultery, I would still be kept in the dark. But I'm in a good mood today. Veronica is this guy's first love. She's not bad, and she's only a soul body. No, I still can't give in. When I mentioned the marriage with Tiffany last time, I already swore that I would be the last one. By the way, I seem to have made the same oath when I was with Isabella. Is this what that guy often said? The king of moral integrity is dead. When Miss Long's thoughts were flying all over the sky, Veronica, who was stunned by that sentence, had already reacted. She covered her face and smiled. Chenrei also understood. Ah? Rala and Chenrei were telepathically connected. As soon as she saw his eyes, she knew that she guessed wrong. Her face blushed slightly. However, Miss Long had the attribute of a fake daze inherited from his father, the Elf King. Instead, he asked confidently, What? Chenrei, after some explanation. It's like this. You have now embarked on a different path from ordinary cultivators. Chenrei pondered. I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse. Rala thought for a while and asked, Is this the path you are taking? It should be. Oh. What a fool. Since this is the case, I will certainly go with you. No matter whether it's a blessing or a curse. Soon after, Rala's consciousness returned to the Rainbow Valley. She continued to meditate and familiarize herself with the newly acquired power. In fact, her separated soul had been left in the super system forever. It was usually integrated into the Star God statue to accept the baptism, enhancement, and feedback to the main body. When Rala's consciousness entered on its own, she could also enter the Tower of Faith to show miracles at the appropriate time to obtain more faith power. Veronica also started to get busy. As the highest oracle of the Galaxy Divinity Temple, she had very special authority and power. What she had to do now was to help Rala select the oracle and apostle of knowledge among the believers who had reached the corresponding devout level. It was equivalent to the spokesperson of the lower level management. She would build a complete system to manage the temples and statues everywhere so that the faith could be spread better. Veronica, the God's servant, could actually be sealed as a star. After Rala left, Chenrei was about to ask her for her opinion. However, Veronica saw through his mind at a glance. She smiled and shook her head. She turned into light and disappeared into the Tower of Faith. Chenrei saw the meaning of the smile. It's good to be with you like this. After a moment of silence, Chenrei also exited the super system. What happened just now? Were you training? Jia's concerned voice came. Chenrei was originally telling Jia that he was going to find Tiffany, but he suddenly fell into a semi-dormant unconscious state. Jia knew that Chenrei would sometimes enter a certain training state, so she immediately ordered the lamp spirits to be on guard outside so as not to disturb him. Almost. Chenrei gently held Jia's hand. If I tell you that because of me, your future path in life may have some unpredictable changes, and you may miss many things. Even I don't know if it is a curse or a blessing. What will you do? In the future? It has already changed now. Jia's eyes showed a slight gentleness. In fact, no one can be sure of the future. For us, the only thing I can be sure of is that if I don't meet you in this life, it will be the biggest mistake. It was a little different from Rala's answer, but it was the same choice. Chenrei held Jia's hand tightly, and Jia gently covered his hand with the other hand. Not only me, I believe they are the same. What you need to do is not to explain or worry, but to walk firmly in your direction. Looking at the affection in the eyes of Her Majesty Empress who completely belonged to him, Chen Rui felt full of strength and confidence. No matter what the future path will become, whether he will face Satan, the three angels, or the abyss, he was fearless. Baby Jia, why are your sweet words becoming more and more like mine? Chen Rui's mood was completely relaxed. He blinked at Jia, and his fingers actually drew circles in the palm of that jade hand. Didn't you say those who stay close to pigs will fall in love? Jia rolled her eyes at him in annoyance. The palm was one of her sensitive parts. When this guy fiddled with it, she suddenly trembled and had goosebumps. It's those who stay close to Vermilion, okay? It seems that we need to discuss some academic issues in depth. Chen Rui chuckled. When there was no one around, he began to touch her. Don't mess around, Stiller is still waiting to report to me in the side hall. Jia was startled. She wanted to withdraw her hand, but she was held tightly. You should go and enlighten Tiffany first. Within 7 days you will take her back to the Bloody Empire capital. Compared with Tiffany, my Jia is naturally more important. Chen Rui suddenly put away his playful smile and got down to business. The invasion of the palace this time also exposed the problem of insufficient defense power. Those ancient runes were laid when I was still at the kingdom level. The strength of the lamp spirit guards can only defend against ordinary powerful people. They have almost no ability to resist the super rank, especially the enemies above the kingdom. This is directly related to your safety, so before leaving the fallen angel capital, I must solve 2 things. First of all, I must hurry up to rearrange the ancient runes defense system near the palace. Then, in terms of the super rank guards, at present, there are only 7 titans and 4 giant crystal beasts that have evolved to the super rank. The target is too large and obvious. Then I will first transfer 2 titans and 2 giant beasts over to cooperate with the lamp spirits and ancient runes to guard the palace. The other 2 empires also have to assign a few just in case. As for your most capable guard, the lamp spirit, I will also speed up the research and evolution to strive to have a super rank as soon as possible. What do you think? And what? A certain empress couldn't bear it any longer. Shameless bastard, can't you make those damned hands stop when you're pretending to be serious and talking? Wow! It's actually white silk inside the dress. Baby, are you finally willing to wear it? What is that wet piece? Hee hee, ouch. Asshole, stop! At this time, under the continuous harassment of the damn hands on her sensitive parts, Her Majesty Empress could no longer maintain her usual indifferent voice. Her breathing began to quicken, and her attitude softened. Don't. The side hall still has man lace. Go to the side hall immediately, and tell Stiller that Her Majesty Jia has a very important matter temporarily. It's of great importance, so she can't see you today. Ask her to come again tomorrow. Yes, master. Ridiculous. What important matter? What is more important than the great work of making an heir to the empire? Chen Rui laughed and carried the forever Princess Royal in his heart and walked toward the bedroom at the back. Chapter 1052. Rala's 2-star strengthening was successful, and she became the goddess of knowledge, who controlled the super systems, galaxy territory, which was an important breakthrough. She would definitely not be the only god, because it was not only the fairy Miss Long who received 2-star strengthening, but everyone in the group of relatives and friends. Moreover, such a source of faith could not only produce one knowledge goddess. At that time, the more super system deity positions integrated, the more powerful the Purple Pole Emperor would be. At this level, it was not possible to advance or even break through just by training hard. Constantly strengthening and refining the faith power was the real basis for quantitative change and even qualitative change. This kind of basic quantitative change problem was no longer something that could be solved by his own strength. It required the common understanding and efforts of all the people who received the strengthening. After an afternoon of practice and in-depth academic research on how to create an heir to the throne with Her Majesty Fallen Angel Empress, Chinrui energetically cast the Tower of Glory and rushed to the City of Stars in the Blue Lake mountain range overnight with a group of lamp spirits, including Manlis. Manlis and other lamp spirits entered the cultivation pool for the experiment of super-evolution. Super-evolution required rule energy. Since Chinrui only had 3 pieces of the law fragments left in his hand, he contributed the 2 demigod-level law crystal balls that were originally reserved for Rala. Although the quality and quantity of the rule energy contained in these 2 crystal balls far exceeded the country-level law fragments, Rala should have the special faith power and purple star transformation star armor at present, so she still needed a lot of time to comprehend. The safety of Jia, Catherine, and Tiffany was the top priority. Moreover, the law fragments and the law crystal balls were not out of print. There was a place where he could get them continuously. After leaving the lamp spirits in the City of Stars, Chinrui used the Tower of Glory to return to the fallen angel capital palace with 2 titans and 2 giant crystal beasts instantly. On the basis of the original rune protection circle, he spent 2 days to rearrange the protection circle. With this kind of formation now, even if a demigod came, it would be difficult to break in easily. Just in case, he had also set up a special teleportation rune for Jia. In case of an unavoidable danger, she could be teleported out of the capital in an instant. Chinrui didn't dare to be careless because the opponent was Satan. The delaying tactic couldn't be maintained for too long. The next batch of messengers would probably come to the fallen angel capital again soon. After arranging all this, Chinrui took Tiffany to the carriage driven by the lamp spirits to the Bloody Empire capital. In fact, the Tower of Glory also had the ability to compress space and travel quickly. However, Chinrui had spent a lot of energy setting up the defenses these past 2 days, so he decided to rest for a day. This carriage was a magic carriage with a small space. It was like a house with 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms. It was perfect for resting. Tiffany sat on the sofa in the hall and stared blankly at the coffee table. She had been in this state for the whole morning. Apart from eating, she hardly made any sound. Tiffany. Chinrui on the opposite side saw that she seemed to have a tendency to be autistic again, so he finally couldn't help but ask. "Anne." Tiffany responded softly. "What are you thinking about?" "Nothing." Chinrui was speechless for a while. "I can't find a topic at all since I'm so stubborn." After a long time, "Chinrui." Tiffany took the initiative to speak. "En?" Chinrui's spirit was refreshed. "Nothing." She lowered her head again. Chinrui covered his forehead speechlessly. "Okay, you win." However, he keenly captured a trace of Tiffany's mental fluctuation just now. He immediately asked tentatively, "Are you feeling nervous when you think of returning to the Bloody Empire?" "A little." "Then, do you hate me a little?" Tiffany looked up in surprise and shook her head. "How come?" "You saved me. If there is no upcoming political marriage," Chinrui sighed, "we can at least be friends." "We don't count now?" "Of course." Chinrui smiled slightly. "If you don't mind being friends with the guy who pushed you into the fire pit." Tiffany looked at Chinrui and shook her head. "No, you are a good person." "Okay, I'm a good person." Chinrui, who had been receiving good person cards since high school in his previous life, rubbed his nose hard. This is a different world. It's okay to be given a good person card by a trap or something, but this girl should be my fiancée. The next sentence won't be something like, "I already have someone I like." Right? Did I say something wrong? Tiffany looked at him in surprise. What a sensitive girl. Chinrui shook his head and smiled. Actually, I really want to say that I'm not a good person. Maybe I can't tell what is good and what is bad. Tiffany's eyes dimmed. I only feel that you are trustworthy. When Chinrui heard the words, "Can't tell what is good and what is bad," he knew that she was thinking of the past again. Then, can I say a few sincere words between friends? Even if it is a little too direct? Yes. Then I'll be straightforward. After that incident, do you really feel that your whole life has collapsed and that life has lost its meaning? Even now, you can only reluctantly give yourself an unclear goal and live on? Chinrui said a few more words in a row, and all of them were mercilessly exposing her scars. Tiffany listened and didn't say anything. She just lowered her head. Chinrui saw clearly that a teardrop fell to the ground, 1 drop, 2 drops. Soon, a low sob sounded, and then, she couldn't suppress her crying again. It seemed that all the emotions that had been accumulated for many days burst out at once. It was the first time that she cried so loudly in front of others, and the tear stains on the ground continued to expand. When the crying finally subsided, Chinrui spoke again, and his voice was very cold. "You are very stupid like this." Tiffany nodded silently. "You still don't understand what I mean by stupid. You should have seen more people and more things in that world. Maybe this has become the strength that supports you to work hard to get up, but it is not enough, because the responsibility that you have to bear is far heavier than the average person. If you can't really stand up, walk out of the haze, and really find the road ahead, then sooner or later you will collapse again in confusion and pain. Everyone's life can't be smooth sailing. You are not the only one who has experienced pain. You should have a deep impression of Isabella. Although she ridiculed you, she actually wanted to stimulate you to stand up again." Tiffany nodded imperceptibly. With her talent, she could naturally sense Isabella's kindness. "But do you know that the pain that Isabella has experienced is no less than yours? Not only her own happiness, but the entire clan was almost wiped out because of this. For 100 years, it can be described as living a life worse than death. And the person who caused all this is the woman who brought you pain." Tiffany was shocked, and she finally raised her head. "Isabella, actually. Kia's mother gave birth to her after being raped. When the ruthless man saw that she gave birth to a succubus girl, he never treated them as family. Instead, he let his wife and concubine control the mother and daughter with soul shackles. She was bullied and enslaved since she was a child. In order to save her mother's life, she was forced to come to the Dark Moon to be an undercover. She almost died several times, but in the end, her mother still couldn't." Chinrui's voice also softened. "These two are just examples around you. There are countless people who have experienced countless sorrows and hardships. You are definitely not the only one who has been desperate in this world. Even Veronica has a painful past that you can't even imagine. Perhaps you will feel that this painful experience is as long as hundreds of thousands of years, but even hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years are just a blink of an eye for the entire galaxy. This experience is just a small episode in your entire life. It doesn't represent the meaning of your entire life. Therefore, you didn't lose anything. Instead, you have more things. These things can make you see further and be stronger on the road in the future." Tiffany's reddened eyes moved. Her hands trembled slightly as she clenched them a little too tightly. After a while, she choked and said 3 words. "I'm sorry. I'm the one saying sorry. Some of the words just now were indeed too direct. I will try my best to help you if you are willing to trust me. But first, you have to stand up by yourself. You have to stand up by yourself. No matter what lies ahead, at least take the first step." Tiffany nodded. Chinrui couldn't remember how many times she had nodded. He let out a long breath. "Well, I can see that you haven't slept well these days. Now go back to your room and have a good sleep. When you wake up, it will be a new day." Tiffany stood up, hesitated for a moment, and asked timidly, "Can I sleep here?" Chinrui saw that her gaze was actually pointing at the sofa he was sitting on. He couldn't help but be stunned. "Well, okay." Tiffany took out a blanket from the room, walked over, and slept on the sofa next to him. This sofa was very long. It was quite similar to the modern fabric sofa style on Earth in Chinrui's memory. It was very convenient for sleeping. Chinrui looked at Tiffany, who seemed to be curled up like a kitten under the blanket. He sighed and sat a little closer, letting his legs touch her head. After thinking about it, he reached out and gently stroked the long light blue hair. This was his fiancée. There was no need to be too distant. The most important thing was that this could really make him feel at ease. Tiffany trembled slightly at first, then she seemed to enjoy the warmth. Slowly, Her tense body relaxed completely, and her breathing began to become long and even. She fell into a dream. 4 days later, with the assistance of the Tower of Glory, the carriage arrived at the Bloody Empire's capital. The two were greeted by an extremely grand welcome ceremony which caused a sensation throughout the capital. Because before that, Raisin had personally announced 3 shocking news through the 3 countries' joint TV stations and the Bloody Empire's first TV station. First, the royal noblewoman, Tiffany Mammon, was actually Raisin's biological daughter. This princess would become the great princess and the heir of the empire. Second, Raisin would abdicate to Princess Tiffany within a month. Third, after Princess Tiffany ascended the throne and became the Empress, she would marry the husband of the fallen angel Empire, Aguil. Chapter 1053. The sky was gloomy, and there was a faint sound of thunder. It was going to rain soon. Shenrui looked up at the dark clouds in the sky, showing a thoughtful expression. Why? Are you still thinking about your Her Majesty Empress? By the way, Royal Highness should only be a princess now. There are still 21 days before Raisin abdicates. A pleasant voice sounded. I want to remind you that it's impolite to think about another woman while you're talking to a woman. You're thinking too much. I'm just thinking about some problems. Shenrui shrugged. The stupidest thing is to mention another woman beside a woman, especially when the 2 women are in some kind of competitive relationship. No matter from which aspect, Tiffany was not this woman's opponent because she was the demon realm's #1 beauty and the demon realm's #1 sage. This, #1, may not be absolute, but at least it was recognized by the vast majority of people. Dark Shadow Empress, Catherine Asmodeus. I see. Catherine smiled slightly and didn't ask further. She was a smart woman. She knew that some things were enough to stop. For example, it was enough to give him a reminder now. If she kept pestering him, it would only be counterproductive. I'm thinking that Satan definitely won't give up just like that. Although I've strengthened my defenses, they're only effective against demigods. In the face of a pinnacle demigod, they're practically useless. Once Satan comes, I won't be able to do anything about it. Perhaps I'll have to wait for Ben Hong to awaken before I can fight him. The problem is, I can't control the timing of his awakening. If Satan comes in advance, then we can show weakness and delay. The most important thing is that no matter what kind of enemy we face, we can't relax at any time. This is the key to victory. Catherine also looked up at the sky. I think the mysterious training you mentioned can start as soon as possible. Shenrui heard the meaning in Catherine's words. You're going too? I've arranged everything. Catherine nodded. Don't you think my current strength has reached a bottleneck? I was just finding it inconceivable. During the martial competition, your strength hadn't even reached the middle stage of the kingdom, and you only defeated the Scarlet Mantis by trickery. Now, you're actually at the peak of the kingdom. If Scarlet Mantis saw this scene, even if she had 3 hearts, she would still be scared out of her wits. The word inconceivable sounds a little insincere, doesn't it? Catherine sighed deliberately. I heard that Rala is almost a mid-stage demigod, and she has even become the goddess of the ancient world of heritage. Yet you actually have the strength to fight against a fake god. Is this a slap in my face? How could I bear to slap your face? Shenrui looked at the beautiful face, and his eyes moved to the 2 tender and beautiful red lips. He couldn't help but think of a certain scene in the bedroom last night, and he felt a flame rising in his lower abdomen. Catherine seemed to sense what he was thinking. A blush quickly appeared on her face, and she rolled her eyes at him. She was so flirtatious that it made a certain guy feel a stronger impulse. However, Her Majesty Empress wittily changed the topic immediately. Nurturing Duo gave me a very special power. I feel that I have only absorbed and digested a part of this power. If I can master it all, my strength will go to another level. Not only that, Nirvana is Asmodeus' most powerful talent. The higher the strength, the stronger the effect, especially when I have reached Nirvana 5 times, so my training speed is much faster than the average person. In addition, your star level enhancement, and the power of sealed stars have also played a strong role in promoting. I am actually deliberately controlling the progress now. I want to consolidate the foundation step by step. Actual combat is the best way to control and integrate the power. Shinrei nodded. Nirvana is indeed the most powerful talent of an Asmodeus royal family, but it is also the most difficult and dangerous. He had personally experienced Catherine's fifth nirvana. If it weren't for the protection of Dwudwa's power, not only Catherine, but even he would also be annihilated. Duo actually has such a powerful power. What kind of existence is a phoenix? Catherine put her hand in his palm. Even without these, just to enhance your strength, I will work hard to train and help you like Rala. Because I am not only the Empress of the Shadow Empire, but also your woman. Shinrei held her hand, only to feel a warm current flowing through his heart. Whether it was Rala, Jia, Catherine or others, their thoughts were the same. This was the biggest motivation for him to move forward. Can you invite Her Majesty Empress to go to the Cyan Haze Mountain in the suburbs later? It is said that it is a good place to watch the rain. Shinrei kissed the back of her hand and made an invitation etiquette. Is it a compensation for thinking about other women in a daze previously? Catherine blinked playfully. In front of this man, she didn't need to wear a veil or a mask. She was more relaxed and happy. Of course not. It's just a temporary romantic trip. Or it should be said that it has always been in my mind. Why does it feel like you are trying to cover it up? Catherine said with a smile. However, I am honored to accept this invitation, my someone else's husband, Royal Highness. The last sentence of someone else's husband, Royal Highness obviously corresponded to the previous Her Majesty Empress. Shinrei was embarrassed for a while. Seeing Royal Highness Prince Consort's appearance, Her Majesty Empress smiled and kissed his face gently. Before that, please allow your woman to change her clothes first. The child is her father. This kind of address and tone were full of warmth. Shinrei's speechlessness was suddenly filled with warmth. Looking at Catherine's smiling figure, he couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Because he was indeed thinking about Tiffany just now. He still clearly remembered the scene at that time. The news announced by Raisin was indeed amazing. It caused a sensation in the entire demon realm. The former top powerhouse, the supreme ruler of the bloody empire, Raisin Mammon, actually wants to abdicate. And the object of abdication is actually a daughter who, suddenly, appeared. Not only that, this daughter will also marry the husband of the fallen angel Empress Jia. While these three pieces of news were all explosive for a while. Some upper-class nobles of the bloody empire were not unfamiliar with the name Tiffany. It was said that this mysterious noblewoman was once favored by the two late princes, Edmund and Terrace. They even had a famous banquet assassination incident because of jealousy. For the vast majority of people, Raisin's statement, "She is my biological daughter," on TV was equivalent to absolutely recognizing the princess's identity. Although Raisin did not mention who the princess's mother was, many people speculated that the mysterious royal consort might not be a member of the royal family, so she would hide Tiffany's identity for so many years. Having said that, which royal family doesn't have similar secrets? Therefore, there was no problem with Tiffany's identity. Although the decision to abdicate caused a lot of turmoil in the country, under Raisin's years of prestige and the means prepared early on, the voice of opposition was quickly eliminated. It could be said that no one dared to question Raisin's decision to abdicate. In fact, Raisin still had a few children, but most of them were useless. They were far less outstanding than the deceased Alias, Edmund, and Terrace. After the death of the three, a few of them also had a fluke hope, but now it turned into a bubble with Raisin's announced decision. The last news was also sensational. For the royal family, political marriage was not surprising, but the bloody empire empress's marriage partner was actually Abwile. As an influential figure who once shocked the entire demon realm, the deeds of Abwile were already well known. In addition to the identity of super powerhouse and dual Grand Master, This mysterious figure also had the most eye-catching identity. He was the husband of the fallen angel Empress Jia and the lover of the dark shadow Empress Catherine. He even had a daughter. Now, he was also the Empress of the Bloody Empire who was about to ascend the throne. What's going on? The husband is similar to the Empress. He should be just an accessory. Judging from the current public situation, Aguil is the only male spouse of Jia and Catherine. Then, it is equivalent to this guy opening a harem that makes all men jealous and hate. He has all three empresses in his arms. The legendary domineering side leakage? However, most people could see that Raisin's move was definitely a good move for the Bloody Empire under the general trend of the alliance. Although the embryonic form of the three-empire alliance had been set, it was only a temporary alliance after all, rather than a real empire as a whole. The relationship between the Shadow Empire and the Fallen Angel Empire was undoubtedly closer because of the common lover of the two empresses, Aguil. Aguil was too crucial. Even without considering his personal strength, just his unpredictable talent alone had a strong manipulation and influence on the entire alliance. The economic storm that made the entire demon realm pale was the best example. At that time, the Shadow Empire and the Bloody Empire almost collapsed because of it. If there was any change in the alliance, it was difficult to guarantee that the terrible situation would not happen again. There were even more unpredictable situations. The first victim would definitely be the Bloody Empire. Now that Raisin abdicated to Princess Tiffany, and then Empress Tiffany married Aguil, in a sense, it was equivalent to the three empires returning to the same starting line. It was also equivalent to giving the people of the Bloody Empire a reassurance pill. Although with the support of the people and the strong suppression of Raisin, it should not be a problem for Tiffany to ascend to the throne, but the tests she would encounter would be more and more difficult. She could only rely on herself to face it. Chinrei's deepest impression was the first conversation between Raisin and Tiffany in the palace. There were only 4 sentences in total. "Are you sure you are ready? I'm still alive." "What do you mean?" "Anything that can't kill me will only make me stronger. Any pain and sorrow I suffer now will turn into my most solid strength in the future." When Tiffany answered the last sentence, she didn't look at Chinrei, but she looked directly at Raisin. But Chinrei knew that she was looking at him. Just like when he said goodbye and left the Bloody Empire, Tiffany just nodded coldly. In fact, her heart had been sending him far away. Tiffany didn't have any special feelings for him, but she trusted and thanked him more. At least, they were already friends. According to the friend of the opposite sex theory of a certain dead duck dragon, the scumbag had already succeeded. In any case, Tiffany, please stand up and walk forward. His reminiscing thoughts were quickly interrupted. He saw that Catherine had already changed her clothes. Unlike the usual elegant and solemn black, this was a light blue low-cut, tight-fitting dress, which outlined the perfect curve of her figure. She looked sexy, charming, and particularly eye-catching. Chinrei's eyes lit up, but he frowned. "Isn't this too, conspicuous?" "Conspicuous? It's all right. Actually, I think this dress is more suitable to be appreciated alone. Are all men so narrow-minded?" Catherine smiled sweetly, and there was already a cloak in her hand. She draped it over her seductive body and covered her face with a thin veil at the same time. Her sexy temperament suddenly became mysterious and elegant. "Is this okay, my dear husband? Is this the name you used in the story you told me last time?" "Yes, my dear wife." Chinrei stretched out his arm, and Catherine held it gently. The two looked at each other and smiled, then they disappeared instantly. Rain pitter-pattered down. Chapter 1054. Although Jia, Athena, and Kia couldn't go, they all received 2-star strengthening. They strived to comprehend the mystery of 2-star strengthening as soon as possible and become the god of the Grand Master's inheritance world as soon as possible. Just like Rala, even if she couldn't fight directly, she could still greatly enhance Chinrei's strength. There was also a precious daughter, Duo. Firstly, she was still young. Secondly, Chinrei didn't want to limit her future path now, so he didn't let her receive the power of strengthening or link. What is it? Similar to the power of stars? It shouldn't be her. Samuel was definitely going to participate in the UFO land trial, while Joanna and Ina were not combat type, so they stayed in the Dark Moon to assist Jia. I'll spare your lives this time, but I've always been fair in rewards and punishments. Eski, you're the leader. I punish you to go to the ice prison for 1 year. The other two, 1 month. It just so happened that Garatam received a summon from Chenrui, and he came to the Dark Moon in high spirits. He wanted to shock this master, and at the same time, he also wanted to deter the poisoned dragon, Paglio, who used to step on his head. The poor corpse necromancer was obsessed with research, so he didn't know about the Demon Realm Martial Arts Conference. He almost peed his pants when he arrived at the Dark Moon. It seems that it doesn't have this function anymore. Paglio is close to the peak of the kingdom. Lomont and Crobolus are also at the kingdom level, and even the slime is. One of the wives of the Lord, the fairy dragon, Rala, is actually a demigod. Old friend? The man looked thoughtful. Catherine, one of the hostesses who just rushed back to the Dark Moon with the Lord, is at the peak of the kingdom. It is said that the Lord already has the strength to compete with the false god. In fact, there was another servant, Lucio, a spearman from the human world who was serving as a deacon in the Saint Hall of the Rio Empire. Chenrui had secretly contacted him when he was in the City of Wizards. He was currently regarded as a semi-undercover agent. At this time, the Dark Moon Estate had gathered all the family members and spiritual connections, who were about to participate in the UFO land trial. Originally, the Black Dragon girl Oliphius, Adeline, the demigod servant Leslie, and Helen, Lolly, Tablet Triple Transformation. However, these people had all gone to the Sea of Death to visit their relatives and explore, so there was no news yet. Due to the urgency of time, Chenrui did not stay long in the Shadow Empire, and he soon returned to the Dark Moon Estate. At the same time, Catherine also arrived. This made the duo, who hadn't seen her mother for a while, extremely excited. Tiffany, who was far away in the Bloody Empire, also received a 1-star enhancement. This happened before she returned to the Bloody Empire. At that time, Chenrui didn't have any other plans. He just wanted to help her regain her strength and confidence. Because most of Tiffany's power was swallowed by Eudora with the help of Eliza's talent, plus the loss in the spirit gathering circle, her foundation was severely damaged. Ordinary cultivation couldn't recover in a short time, and there would be future problems. 1-star enhancement could cleanse and recast the foundation, which was the right medicine. It was not that Jia didn't want to go, but her situation was different from Catherine. Moreover, this trial was not a day or two, and the next person sent by Satan would definitely come to the fallen angel empire first. Therefore, Jia's responsibility and pressure would not be trivial. When we came back, we happened to hear that Sir Satan was training, so we didn't dare to disturb him. We didn't know that Sir finished training today, so... The woman was the arrogant Eski in the fallen angel palace, but now she was trembling with fear. She was afraid that she would be annihilated if she said a wrong word. As for the Shadow Empire, Catherine had already made arrangements. In the name of retreat meditation and training, the government affairs were handled by the new Minister of Internal Affairs, Lilith, while the military affairs were given to Royal Uncle Florence. As everyone knew, Her Majesty's Shadow Empress was not only a wise man, but also a powerhouse who could rival Raisin. She had many similar meditation or training before, but it did not cause any waves this time. Garatam stayed in seclusion since then. Finally, not long ago, he took the risk and merged his soul essence with the life essence in Eucalia's skeleton with the power of the phylactery. He successfully became a combination of corpse necromancer and dragon lich. He had 2 combat forms, and his strength entered the early stage of kingdomization in one fell swoop. Since its power, it is indeed not an enemy that you can contend with. Satan nodded slightly. Just as Eski and the other 2 secretly breathed a sigh of relief, the faint voice sounded again. However, you guys seem to be back too fast. Did you just go to the Fallen Angel Empire? The one who was the least enthusiastic was Dodo. The slime, who had always been carefree and hated work, finally returned from the dangerous human world. How could he be willing to train hard? He only reluctantly went along after some coercion and temptation. Is that person a man or a woman? What are the characteristics? At this time, in another place, facing this group of monsters, the corpse necromancer had to continue to be a human. A dead person. The UFO land was extremely dangerous. Even Demigod was in danger of dying at any time. Athena was pregnant, so she definitely couldn't take this risk. It was better to stay in the dark moon to recuperate peacefully. Kia's strength was low, and she was not the type who was good at fighting. In order to avoid distracting Chunrei and others, she chose to stay and take care of Athena. The members of the group of friends were Paglio, Crobolus, Lomont, Delia, Metaloo, and Dodo. The tearing force gradually subsided. The three of them trembled, and no one dared to make a sound. The other party was a male, and his appearance was very ordinary. Now that I think about it, my memory of his facial features is very vague, but his eyes gave me a very terrifying feeling, as if... Eski tried her best to recall the scene. As for developing new link targets, it was not that Chunrei had not considered it, but the current situation was a bit urgent, so it was better to take the next step. The top priority was to enhance the strength of himself and his relatives as soon as possible and obtain Rule energy to meet the needs of the City of Stars. The patriarch of the Shadow Empire's top business family, Serene, was originally an undercover agent placed by Chunrei in the Shadow Empire, but now even the Queen of the Shadow Empire was Chunrei's wife. This undercover naturally lost its meaning. Selene knew Chunrei's power and means, so she chose to truly surrender. She had been conscientious, so Chunrei gave her the power of one-star evolution this time. The corpse necromancer, Garadam, was considered an old minister of the Dark Moon Estate. The undead army under his command played a very important role in the civil war of the fallen Angel Empire and against Raisin's army. When Garadam wanted to advance to Demon Overlord, although he obtained the dragon power essence found by Chunrei, he was unable to succeed because of the lack of Siren's heart. Later, Chunrei defeated Lich King Glorios in the Battle of the Dead Sea of Hatred and obtained the Lich King's phylactery. Then, he killed Dragon Lich Eucharis at the Fallen Angel Empire Alchemist Contest and obtained a complete Dragon Lich skeleton. They were all relics of the super powerhouse, so he gave them to Garadam for research. In the hall, the voice gradually disappeared, and silence returned. To be precise, there was a figure with only half of his body left. His injury should be quite serious, but in front of the man, he didn't even dare to take a deep breath. Stars, countless stars. Eski lowered her head and said, he originally seemed to have the strength of the peak of demigod. Later, he exerted his true power. That terrifying momentum made me unable to resist. That is by no means the power that the demigod level can possess. It is power. I can be sure of this. The man closed his eyes and listened to the report of the woman who was the leader of the three people. After hearing the two sentences of pass on, his eyes finally opened slowly. His gaze was not particularly sharp, but there was a faint majesty. The three people who had been lowering their heads suddenly sensed it, and they shuddered at the same time. Before she finished speaking, Satan snorted coldly. The three of them felt a terrifying force rushing into their souls. Half of their bodies were torn apart. They shouted one after another, Sir, please spare us! The harem group included Rala, Catherine, and Isabella. Paglio was the most enthusiastic one. He was currently one step away from reaching the peak of the kingdom. He had been unable to succeed before, so this was obviously the best way to train. Crobolus had just broken through the realm of kingdomization, and she also needed actual combat to stabilize her realm. Alice, as the first echelon member of the harem substitute, self-appointed, also volunteered to participate. However, the foundation of 2-star strengthening was 1-star strengthening. Currently, the lowly princess was still at the first stage. 1-star strengthening would cause her strength to regress within a month. Fortunately, with Alice's strength, it could basically be ignored. She only needed to follow Athena in the dark moon. In addition to the group of relatives and friends, there were also the group of servants, namely Samuel, Joanna, Ina, Geradim, Selene, and Sikali. Satan stretched out a finger, and Eski suddenly didn't dare to explain any more. She lowered her head even more. Yes. Eski's vest was already soaked in cold sweat. It's because that person said, there will be an answer soon. Lomont, who had just entered the kingdomization, was also unwilling to lag behind. He clamored to catch up and abuse the poison dragon as soon as possible. Delia's strength had always been on par with Lomont back then. Later, due to the soul shackles, her strength could not progress. When Brock's death shackles was lifted, she had fallen behind Lomont a lot. She was currently only a demon overlord. She also wanted to enter the super rank and fight alongside Lomont. As the mistress, Medalu, who had always been assertive, naturally wanted to keep up with the main wife. What old friend is it? After receiving 1-star strengthening and the star ceiling, Geradim's spirit was greatly boosted. When he heard that there was actually a powerful wandering soul that had never been seen in the UFO land, the corpse necromancer couldn't care less about the 1-month period of weakness. He took the initiative to go. Anyway, as long as the phylactery was not destroyed, he would at most sacrifice a skeleton. The 3 silhouettes respectfully looked at the man sitting in the main hall. After deciding on the personnel who would go to the UFO land to train, Shinrui activated the Tower of Glory to keep everyone in the tower. His mind moved slightly, and a light blue light appeared in front of him. The surroundings were faintly glowing with crystal starlight. As for Sikali, he was currently the lord of the White Feather Estate. Unlike the previous few people, he signed a master-servant contract. Facing the legendary super powerhouse master, Sikali, who knew that his life and death were completely in the hands of the other party, showed incomparable respect and piety. Shinrui thought for a while and also gave him 1-star strengthening. Male? When the 3 of them heard the words ice hell, they shuddered at the same time. But in any case, their lives were saved, so they quickly retreated. It turned out that this was Mountain Secret, and the man in the hall was naturally the behind-the-scenes envoy of the Darkness Temple, Satan. The Dead Sea was the hometown of Adeline and Helen. Besides, with Leslie and Lalaria there was not a big problem in terms of safety. These people had already accepted the power of 2-star evolution. It only depended on when they could comprehend deification. Chapter 1055. Boom! The emerald green light burst apart. Along with Crobulus's shout, the countless white mist around her was forced away by this surging explosive force. Many of them had frozen into ice when they dispersed. This white mist was actually a ghost-like substance. It did not have a physical body, and there were 2 green lights flashing in it that looked like eyes. Its hands were in the shape of claws, and from time to time, it would let out a low, weeping howl, which would make one's blood run cold. Wandering soul. After Crobulus launched an attack, she shivered. It was not caused by the cold air in her attack just now, but by the wandering soul's spirit erosion, talent. The combat power possessed by the wandering soul far exceeded ordinary opponents of the same level. They had 3 characteristics: immortal body, spirit erosion, and life devouring. The immortal body was not the characteristic of the ordinary undead that was not afraid of spirit magic, but the characteristic of true immortality. Unless this energy was completely eliminated by special targeted means, it would continue to gather and regenerate. Life devouring meant that the wandering soul could devour life forms other than its own kind to strengthen itself and produce new wandering souls. This kind of devouring was almost a strong instinct, and it would take the initiative to attack all creatures that were not wandering souls. Spirit erosion was the most troublesome kind. Wandering souls could emit special spirit power to erode the enemy's soul and spirit. This kind of erosion was specifically manifested when attacked by the enemy. The enemy would automatically be corroded, which was equivalent to a nasty rebound attribute. Before coming here to train, Chenrei prepared targeted equipment for everyone, including special items to weaken the spiritual erosion and quasi-artifact like shocking thunder, which was aimed at the undead. However, the wandering soul was not an ordinary undead. The effect of shocking thunder was not as good as expected. Moreover, weakening spirit erosion did not mean immunity, so it was inevitable to be eroded by the rebound. After all, not everyone had a treasure like the Angry King armor. The wandering souls were scattered and frozen by Crobolus, but they were not annihilated. They recondensed or broke out of the ice and continued to rush toward the Emerald Dragon. At this time, circles of black arcs lit up around Crobolus. The wandering souls that pounced on her were blasted apart by a huge shock force. This kind of vibration carried an endless aftereffect and a poison that penetrated deep into the soul. The weaker wandering souls were gradually exhausted after being turned into powder. Finally, they could not regenerate and were completely annihilated. The arc light disappeared, and Paglio's figure appeared. The poison dragon was panting a little. He was holding a black weapon, Thunder Flail. The back of his hand that was holding the flail was full of green blood. The reason why the poison dragon bled was not because it was attacked by the wandering souls, but because it was trying to activate the Thunder Flail. Although this powerful offensive artifact came from Paglio's father, and ordinary people couldn't use it, even Paglio could only use it by burning his bloodline before he reached the level of a demigod. It could be said that he would kill 10,000 enemies at the cost of 3,000 of his own. "Paglio!" the Emerald Dragon exclaimed. She knew that this method would cause great damage to the poison dragon. "Little Betty, I'll cover you." "Run!" Paglio yelled. He waved the flail again, and a gap appeared in the encirclement in front of him. Although there were no elite demigod-level leaders in this group of wandering souls, there were many of them. There were more than 30 kingdom level, and a few of them had reached the peak of kingdom level. Coupled with their immortal characteristics, even if Paglio had broken through to the peak of kingdom level, he couldn't hold on for too long. "No!" The Emerald Dragon's voice was very firm. At this moment, the gap had been resealed. Crobolus knew that the current situation was very bad. Paglio could only burn his life to open a way at most, but he would be exhausted and unable to escape. In this case, it was better to die with him. The poison dragon's heart was filled with unprecedented self-blame. He blamed himself for being overconfident this time. He thought that he could ignore all enemies below demigod when he advanced to the peak of kingdom level. He wanted to obtain the law fragment to show off in front of Lomont, so he left the team with the Emerald Dragon to act alone. As a result, when he was annihilating a small group of wandering souls, he alarmed the large group. He was besieged and couldn't escape. At this moment, a familiar shout sounded behind the wandering souls. There was a special color behind the white mist of the wandering souls. Black. Black flames. This kind of black flame was different from the destructive power of the Thunder Flail. It was full of vitality. The black flame spread instantly. The wandering souls that were invulnerable to water and fire actually burned when they were touched by the flame. Finally, they were annihilated without a trace. This flame was simply the nemesis of the wandering souls. The most powerful talent of the Asimode royal family, the flame condensed by the power of Nirvana. Paglio and Crobolus were energized. The Emerald Dragon had already shouted in surprise, "Catherine!" The spreading flame condensed in the air, wrapping a human figure in it. It swept in the direction of Crobolus' voice. The wandering souls along the way were burned to ashes, revealing a few crystal lights. "The law fragment!" The poison dragon, who was meeting in the direction of Phoenix, reacted extremely quickly. With a wave of his hand, a suction force pulled the crystal lights into his hand. "Let's go!" Catherine's voice sounded. "You came at the right time. Let's eliminate all these wandering souls. We should be able to harvest more law fragments." Paglio still had the characteristics of a dead duck dragon. He didn't mention his mistake of taking the Emerald Dragon on an adventure. Catherine shook her head. "I feel a strong sense of oppression from a distance from the changes in the Nirvana's flame. It is likely that the demigod-level wandering souls are approaching here." It is not advisable to stay here for a long time. The poison dragon had already suffered a loss from advancing rashly before. The burning of his bloodline also caused his power to be greatly damaged, so he naturally didn't dare to continue fighting. Under the cover of Catherine, he fought while leaving. He quickly evacuated this dangerous area with Crobolus. A few days ago, Chunrei took everyone into the UFO land for a trial for 2 days. In order to train better, he divided everyone into 2 teams. The one team was led by Rala. The team members were Catherine, Paglio, Crobolus, and Dodo. The other team's captain was Chunrei. The team members were Garadim, Isabella, Lomont, Delia, Medalu, and Samuel. The overall strength of the Fairy Dragon team was very strong. They were all super rank. Rala herself was even a demigod. If they cooperated properly, they should be able to achieve good results. The overall strength of Chunrei's team was much worse. Except for Chunrei himself, there were only 3 super rank. Isabella and Lomont had just advanced to the kingdom not long ago, while the corpse necromancer Garadim was still in the regressive period of 1-star strengthening. His strength was not even as good as the demon overlord, which meant that there were only 2 kingdom-level powerhouses. Delia and Samuel were demon overlords while Medalu was only the peak stage of the demon emperor, so it was inevitable that she had to be distracted. However, Chunrei's strength had reached the peak stage of demigod without activating the polar star transformation. In addition, he was familiar with the UFO land and the wandering souls, so he could lead these team members to train to the greatest extent. The 2 teams carried out the trials separately. They would meet at the Star Point every 7 days to exchange experiences. This time, Catherine and Rala came out separately to look for the poison dragon. The timid, really handsome sir followed the strongest mistress of the fairy dragon as an assistant. "Catherine, thank you for coming," Crobolus said gratefully to Catherine. The power of Nirvana had a special healing effect. The injuries of the poison dragon and emerald dragon had recovered a lot with the help of Catherine. Catherine nodded to her. "The power here has a strong interference to perception. Even with Chunrei's items, it can't be found after a certain range. We are lucky this time." The emerald dragon looked at the stuttering poison dragon, and she couldn't help but pinch him fiercely. "Say something." Thank you." Paglio was a little embarrassed, and he finally said it. In fact, this guy was a bit narrow-minded. He had always had a problem with Catherine. In the quarterfinals of the Bloody Empire Martial Arts Conference, the opponent that the poison dragon encountered was Catherine. The cunning poison dragon deliberately teased the Dark Shadow Empress, but he actually secretly attacked her, but he was completely defeated by Catherine. In the end, a similarly narrow-minded human added some slander in front of Ms. Little Betty, and it even triggered a small domestic violence within the dragons. Although he had long known the relationship between Catherine and Chunrei, the poison dragon was inevitably a little embarrassed when he was a teammate with Catherine now. Catherine smiled slightly. "Don't be so polite. We are all companions who fight side by side. Besides, Duoduo is still under your care in the Dark Moon. Among her favorite people, you two are among them." When it came to Ms. Duoduo, Paglio suddenly became energetic, and his demeanor was a lot more natural. Anyone who sees that little girl likes her. She is much cuter than her cunning father. How can you talk like that? Miss Emerald Long was speechless. Hee, I'm just telling the truth. Paglio's voice was a little lower, but he was still stubborn. I still have a lot of adjectives that I haven't used. Catherine smiled and said, "Actually, I can guess it. For example, greedy and lustful. He doesn't even care about his life for a woman and so on." Paglio smiled and said to Miss Emerald Long, "Little Betty, look, even Catherine herself said so. Compared with that guy, Master Poison Dragon is so devoted and reliable." Crobolus looked thoughtful. "I remember that there is also a devoted and reliable poison dragon who was determined to bring a group of female dragons to hover over a certain cunning, greedy and lustful guy." This conversation brought the distance between the 3 of them closer. When they were rushing back, Catherine's flying figure suddenly stopped as if something special had happened. "Catherine?" Chrobulus asked carefully. Please protect me. Catherine frowned slightly and covered her head. The nirvana flame I just cast seems to have some effect. My soul seems to be attracted to some special space. Perhaps it is caused by the faith enhancement that Chinray mentioned. Okay. Paglio immediately responded. The poison dragon was a person who remembered grudges as well as kindness. Catherine saved him and Chrobulus just now, so he was naturally duty-bound now. The three of them immediately landed on an island floating in the air and found a more hidden place. Catherine sat down and closed her eyes. The poison dragon and emerald dragon guarded her on both sides. Out of habit, the cautious poison dragon temporarily set up the dragon inscription's protective magic circle. Time passed by minute. At this moment, Paglio's ears moved. He faintly heard some kind of sound coming from the direction where the three of them escaped from the encirclement. Soon, Chrobulus also heard it. The two looked at each other and saw the solemnity on each other's face. This is the sound of crying. They are densely intertwined, and I don't know how many there are. A large number of wandering souls. They are approaching. Chapter 1056. In the sky, a large white mist spread, mixed with countless chilling cries. The entire space seemed to be trembling slightly. Paglio's and Chrobulus' faces changed at the same time. The number of this batch of wandering souls was far beyond imagination. If the wandering souls that surrounded them before were compared to a small river, then what appeared in front of them now was a big river. According to Chinray's introduction and the accumulated experience these days, there was definitely a demigod-level wandering soul in a group of wandering souls of this scale. Thinking of what Catherine said before, the two of them became more and more nervous. The nirvana's flame had a special effect on the wandering souls. In addition to super-effective damage, it could also sense the strength of the wandering souls and avoid danger. These wandering souls were likely to be the pursuers that Catherine sensed when the three of them retreated previously. They were chasing after the breath of life. Although Catherine's nirvana's flame could restrain the wandering souls, her own strength was only at the peak of the kingdom. She couldn't compete with the demigod-level wandering souls. Paglio's combat power, especially the lethality of the wandering souls, was far inferior to Catherine. If they fought head-on, this group of wandering souls could engulf the three of them in an instant. Now they could only hope that the dragon inscription's concealment would not be noticed by the wandering souls. Contrary to their wishes, the wandering souls suddenly slowed down as if they noticed something. The emerald dragon and poison dragon's hearts were in suspense all of a sudden. The wandering souls didn't have any wisdom, emotions such as joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. All they had were fighting instincts. But the simpler this instinct was, the more terrifying it was. It was not disturbed by the illusion on the surface at all. The wandering soul's sensory ability was not the sight and hearing of ordinary people, but the perception of life breath. The higher the level of the wandering souls, the stronger the perception. Unless they had a special hiding talent, it was almost impossible to escape. Paglio's dragon inscription was only the power of the kingdom level, so it might not be able to hide from the demigod level wandering souls. The wandering souls began to stop. Without any organization, they just slowly dispersed in place, searching for possible life breath. Paglio held Chrobulus's hand and felt the cold sweat on each other's hands. If anything happens, I will hold them back. You escape with Catherine immediately. This inscription circle had a soundproof effect, so the outside couldn't hear the movements inside for the time being. Paglio. Chrobulus's eyes were red. Now is not the time to talk about living and dying together because there are not only the two of us here. Paglio sighed. Catherine. I implicated her, or rather, we implicated her. No matter what, we must keep her alive. Meanwhile, in another place. It was also a group of white mist-like wandering souls, but there were far fewer of them. Everyone seemed to be fighting with ease. A dozen or so wandering souls flew into the air. They weren't flying on their own, but they had lost their balance and were lifted into the air by some unknown force. In the blink of an eye, a blue electric light flashed. The wandering souls in the air were repeatedly struck by the electric light from various angles, causing them to tremble violently. After a few seconds, the electric light stopped. It was Lomont, who was holding the two blue blades. A strange light flashed in Lomont's left eye. He waved his saber in a seemingly casual manner, shaking off the corrosive power of the mind. A light breeze swept past, and the wandering souls above him shook and turned into ashes at the same time. So handsome. Metallo's eyes sparkled like stars. Lomont became more and more pretentious when he heard it. However, Delia's indifferent voice sounded. Metallo, you don't have to comfort him. Comfort? Uncle Lomont raised his eyebrows and saw Delia pointing to the sky. There was a green electric light flashing there. It was several times faster than Lomont's previous speed. In an instant, it had flashed in front of Lomont, revealing Isabella's figure. Lomont remembered that the number of wandering souls surrounding her was 5 or 6 times that of his side, but now it was empty. They must have all been killed in an instant. In actual combat, everyone unexpectedly discovered that the Belphegor families, the Eye of Evil, could restrain the immortality of the wandering souls to a certain extent. Combined with the soul power of Delia's, the Eye of Incubus, it could completely eliminate the wandering souls in a short time. Of course, due to the limitations of her own strength, the targets that she could restrain were generally wandering souls with strength below the early stage of the kingdom realm. Madame Ant looked at her nephew with a smile and opened her palm. There were 2 pieces of law fragments in her palm. Very handsome little Lomont, what's your harvest? Little Lomont smiled embarrassedly. His eyes fell on the brie shadow boots on her feet. This seems a bit unfair, my most respected Madame Ant. I think it's very fair. His uncle's voice sounded. Little Lomont, if you have any opinions, let's go back to the dark moon to discuss it now. Hee, my dearest uncle, of course I have no opinion. Little Lomont didn't want to leave this treasure land for leveling up. The leader could always avoid the important and find the most suitable group of wandering souls for their trial. At this time, he had completely stabilized his strength at the early stage of the kingdom realm. It was only a matter of time before he reached the next small realm. Humph. Looking at the flattering Lomont, Delia asked Metallo on the side, Is this guy still handsome now? And Metallo nodded. Delia was speechless for a while. Okay, I won't argue with you, a love-struck fool. Shinrei didn't continue to tease Lomont. He waved his hand in the air, and several demon overlord-level wandering souls that attacked Samuel in the distance turned into powder. Samuel waved his long sword and launched several streams of light, cutting off all the wandering souls nearby. His figure flashed, and he had returned to Shinrei's side. There were many scars on his body, and he was panting heavily. Don't push yourself too hard, Samuel. Shinrei shook his head. More haste, less speed. You have just barely broken through to the peak stage of the demon overlord. The most important thing now is to consolidate and familiarize yourself with your existing strength. If you are too ambitious, it will only backfire. Do you understand? Master, I understand. Samuel bowed his head in shame. After coming to the demon realm, the pressure on the Golden Knight was actually quite great because most of the helpers around the Master were at the kingdom level. He had just reached the intermediate stage of the Demon Overlord, and it was the result of the star sealing and various enhancements. Therefore, Samuel had always wanted to improve his strength quickly. He would enter the special space with the time rule every day to train hard. After coming to this mysterious place now, the accumulation in the special space finally broke out, and he broke through to the peak stage of the Demon Overlord. Unfortunately, as Shinrei said, he was indeed too greedy and rash. The nearby wandering souls whose bodies were shattered began to gather again. Shinrei looked at everyone, and the crown of thorns appeared on his head. With a flash of white light, he cast the divine healing technique. Everyone's injuries recovered quickly, and the mental erosion power they suffered gradually faded. Wait a minute. Master, don't use this kind of power. A nearby, wandering soul made a frightened voice. It was actually Garadim. It turned out that the corpse necromancer lost his skeleton on the first day of the trial, leaving only his soul. Then, Garadam proposed a crazy idea, which was to try to merge with the wandering souls. After capturing the weakest demon emperor-level wandering soul, Garadam cast a secret technique and attached himself to the wandering soul. After these days of hard work, they actually merged into one. This success made Garadam ecstatic, and he was conducting further research. Although he became a wandering soul, the soul was still afraid of restraining power, especially the divine healing technique, which could be called the strongest healing power. Shinrei smiled slightly and turned on the lock-on function, excluding Garadam from the healing target. At this moment, Shinrei felt the change in the super system. He immediately greeted everyone. With a thought, his consciousness had entered the super system. Catherine. Shinrei saw Catherine appearing in the Galaxy Divinity Temple at a glance, and he was surprised and delighted. Being able to appear here meant that Catherine had completed the 2-star evolution. Shinrei always thought that Isabella was the second, but he didn't expect Catherine to be one step ahead. This must be the inherited world of the ancient civilization that Rala mentioned. Catherine looked around curiously. She looked at the vast galaxy and sincerely praised. It's beautiful. Congratulations, you are about to be one of the hostesses of this universe. Shinrei held Catherine's hand. How do you feel? This is a very special feeling, with a hint of familiarity. It's like when an emperor receives the trust and respect of his subjects. When I look at this universe, I feel like I'm a nebula that contains countless stars, and I'm part of this great whole. Emperor? Faith? As Shinrei was thinking, the Galaxy Divinity Temple flashed and Veronica's figure appeared. Sorry, I was dealing with the prayers of some believers just now, so I'm late. Veronica saw Catherine and bowed. This must be Your Majesty, Catherine. As an oracle, I have the honor of seeing your Galaxy Divinity statue. I'm Veronica. Catherine smiled gently and bowed back. Just call me Catherine. It's a pleasure to meet you, Veronica. Due to Rala and Isabella, the story of a prince's first love in the former human world had long been circulated in the harem, including the relatively bleak ending. Everyone still sympathized with Veronica, who only had a remnant of her soul left. Of course, Veronica, who had lost her body, also lost some competitiveness and threat. This might be one of the reasons why the harem didn't reject her. Veronica nodded and secretly praised Catherine's extraordinary temperament. According to Rala, Shinrei seemed to have more than one empress as his wives. These women should be able to feel happiness. She can now too. As Shinrei's thoughts changed, the three of them instantly came to the Pillar of Faith. A light covered Catherine and sucked her into the Tower of Faith. The Tower of Faith flashed with a strong light, and at the same time, Catherine's Galaxy Divinity statue on the star-ceiling platform also shone. After a while, when Catherine reappeared in his line of sight, her aura had changed dramatically, and the entire super system was also changing accordingly. As Catherine's spirit power merged with the galaxy territory, those living planets had miracles. Just like Rala last time, a large number of believers and corresponding faith buildings appeared. It's a surprising power. Veronica's eyes lit up, and she bowed from afar. I'm honored again, Madam Goddess who controls wisdom. What Catherine fused with was the faith source of wisdom. Catherine looked at her hands in surprise. This feeling is like a key that opens the door of the soul. The feeling and power brought by the star-level enhancement are infinitely magnified. Shinrei also had this feeling. After having an additional god, not only did the super system change, but his power also became more and more majestic. This change contained the mysterious truth, constantly refining and filling star power. Especially in the higher level of purple polar transformation, it would be more obvious. Not only that, I also clearly captured. Wait. Catherine frowned, and her tone changed. The situation is not good. What happened? Shinrei immediately reacted and was taken aback. Your main body? Where is it? It's too late. Catherine suddenly thought of something. Is there a space with time rule here? Shinrui glanced at it in surprise and understood her thoughts. Of course, and it's the original training ground. I'll go in with you. Chapter 1057. UFO Space, an Island. The wandering souls had penetrated deep into the edge of the dragon inscription circle. Many protective inscriptions began to react, and the nearby wandering souls exploded one after another. However, the wandering souls did not have any restlessness or anger. They just condensed and reborn again unconsciously, continuing to look for the faint breath of life. This scene made Paglio and Crobolus feel even more depressed. It seems that it is only a matter of time before they are discovered. Crobolus was already standing next to Catherine, and Paglio was holding the thunder flail, ready to burst out the strongest blow at the moment the inscription circle collapsed. The wandering souls were getting closer. Paglio's hand holding the thunder flail tightened. He glanced at Crobolus and said the words that he had hidden in his heart for a long time. "Little Betty, if we don't die this time, we will get married. We will have a grand wedding and let those guys envy us to death." "Asshole, you're only willing to say it now." Miss Emerald Long's tears fell drop by drop. "Since you pretended to be Rainieri's name to deceive me, I have been waiting for you for many years." Hee hee. Paglio grinned and didn't say anything. Crobolus looked at the poison dragon who didn't seem to care, and she secretly made up her mind. "As long as I can break through and send Catherine to a safe place, I will come back and die with this asshole." At that moment, Catherine's body emitted a strong aura. This aura contained an incomparably powerful life force. This breath of life was so powerful that it instantly exceeded the concealment limit of the dragon inscription. The dragon inscription that seemed to be stretched seemed to be penetrated with countless holes. It could no longer be concealed, and the breath was fully released. The surrounding wandering souls immediately sensed it. The instinct talent of Life Devour made them rush to this side. The dragon inscription circle couldn't stop this continuous impact at all, and it collapsed instantly. "Oh no!" Paglio didn't expect that Catherine would suddenly change like this. It was too late for him to use his means to cover it up again. As he was about to fight desperately, he felt that Catherine's aura had skyrocketed to an extremely terrifying height. The majestic life force spread out in all directions like a huge flood, and the nearby wandering souls were scattered by the power of this flood. The torrent suddenly stopped, as if it was stopped by some force. The nearby wandering souls immediately began to devour the torrent. 2 wandering souls appeared in front of them, and the power flowing through their bodies made Paglio and Crobolus tremble. Demigod-level wandering souls. And it wasn't just one. Crobolus was about to escape with Catherine, but she found that Catherine beside her was gone. At the same time, there was a clear chirp in the sky. It was a phoenix chirping. As soon as the poison dragon and emerald dragon looked up, they saw a huge dark cloud in the sky. To be precise, it was a huge phoenix with black flames. The phoenix let out another cry, flapped its wings, and swooped down. The torrent of life energy that had been stopped suddenly changed, showing a blazing state. In an instant it turned black, with a hint of crimson. It devoured the wandering souls crazily, but unexpectedly, the delicious food immediately became a deadly knife. Before they could react instinctively, they had been burned to ashes in the black fire. Wherever the phoenix passed, huge criss-crossed fire paths appeared below, dividing the group of wandering souls into fragmented pieces. The power and scope of the sea of fire were still expanding. The wandering souls in it were constantly annihilated and reborn. Finally, their power was exhausted and they turned into true nothingness. Even the kingdom-level wandering souls were no exception. The 2 demigod-level wandering souls could no longer suppress the power of the entire sea of fire. They just kept howling and repelled the approaching flames around them. Paglio and Crobolus looked at each other, and they were shocked at the same time. This kind of power, even if the Nirvana flame has the attribute of restraining, it won't be so powerful, unless... The huge black phoenix was burning with crimson flames, and its figure began to shrink quickly into a human shape. Its momentum did not decrease, but it increased instead. It became more and more blazing. Under the surprised gaze of the poison dragon and emerald dragon, the crimson flames converged into the figure, and the form underwent a stunning change. This was a full-body armor with black as the main color, embellished with red. It was as bright as the stars, elegant and gorgeous without losing its solemnity. "Armor of faith!" Paglio blurted out. There was no doubt in his heart now. Armor of faith was an important feature of a demigod-level powerhouse. In other words, Catherine was likely to break through to the demigod realm directly after completing 2-star strengthening. "Paglio!" Chrobulus looked excited as despair turned into hope. As if sensing some kind of crisis, the howls of the 2 demigod-level wandering souls turned into roars, and the air suddenly became extremely cold. Paglio and Chrobulus shuddered at the same time, and they quickly channeled their power to protect their souls. Although the wandering souls did not have a kingdom, their talents were very powerful. The demigod-level wandering souls could release spiritual erosion in their cries. If it weren't for the protection of the black fire, this roar alone could severely damage the souls of the poison dragon and emerald dragon. Although the sudden eruption of the sea of fire eliminated most of the wandering souls, the 2 demigod-level wandering souls in front of them were the real enemies. Catherine raised her hands slightly, and the brilliance around her was even more intense. It quickly spread to the entire space. This was like a fuzzy nebula, vast and huge. Several stars in the nebula lit up. In the sight of Paglio and Chrobulus, those stars seemed to be connected by a mysterious force, forming a special pattern that looked like a phoenix spreading its wings. "Constellation?" Chrobulus suddenly thought of a noun mentioned in a story that Chenray had told before. "It's not good." Paglio frowned. "The most powerful thing about demigod is not the armor of faith, but the kingdom. This kind of kingdom is qualitatively different from our current. It is actually called a pseudo-kingdom because of the power. The demigod kingdom is not a fictitious energy, but a real kingdom with life and faith. Although Catherine broke through and advanced to the kingdom, she still can't exert the power of the real kingdom. Or rather, the kind of immature kingdom can't be used to compete with such a strong enemy. With her current pseudo-kingdom, I'm afraid it will be difficult to resist the 2 wandering souls. We should be prepared to escape as soon as possible so as not to be a burden." The poison dragon stopped before he finished speaking. Although he had not reached the level of demigod, he was a star sealer after all. He could already feel that the constellation contained not ordinary energy, but a huge amount of true vitality and faith power that made people tremble. Even Miss Emerald Long felt it. "That constellation is actually a real kingdom?" The stars in the Phoenix constellation emitted countless beams of light, covering Catherine. Catherine's body suddenly became transparent. She turned into a huge stream of light in the shape of a phoenix, and rushed straight to the 2 wandering souls. The stream of light was full of flapping wings as if countless birds were following. The terrifying power contained in this blow made Paglio and Chrobulus' heart tremble even when they were watching from a distance. The poison dragon suddenly thought of the real, galaxy territory, kingdom owned by a certain, cunning human, and his heart was pounding furiously. Is this the power of the so-called inherited world, apatheized God, after the successful 2-star strengthening? While he was thinking, the phoenix-shaped stream of light with countless birds had hit the 2 wandering souls that were leaning against each other. In an instant, Paglio and Chrobulus felt the violent vibration of the nearby space due to the powerful impact at the same time. The dazzling light made them unable to see the specific scene inside, but they could vaguely hear countless whistling sounds that cut through the air like thousands of birds chirping in unison. The vibration in the space finally stopped gradually. The light of the stars and the stream of light had disappeared along with all the wandering souls. Only Catherine's figure was left floating in the air. The armor on her body had become thinner and faintly discernible as if it was about to disappear. "Catherine!" Chrobulus hurriedly greeted her. "Are you guys okay?" Catherine panted. She seemed to have consumed a lot of energy. The blow just now was indeed powerful, but it consumed almost all of her strength. "We're fine." "You're amazing!" the Emerald Dragon exclaimed excitedly, You saved us again. Thank you. Companion, you don't have to be so polite. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to you for protecting me. Catherine smiled slightly and opened her palm. There was a crystal ball in it. Law crystal ball. Paglio's eyes widened. Okay. I won't say any polite words. I'm convinced this time. Catherine smiled bitterly. If it weren't for the restraining power of Nirvana on the wandering souls, I would never have been able to destroy the two demigod wandering souls so easily. Also, due to the overdraft of my power, I have almost lost all my combat power now. I still need to rely on you guys to escort me back. Of course, call me Betty in the future. Catherine. Miss Emerald Long glanced at Master Poison Dragon, who was quickly collecting the law fragments, and she said with a smile, I remember someone said something about getting married or something? What? Master Poison Dragon asked pretentiously. Didn't you say that if we survive this time, we will get married? Have you forgotten the most important promise? Dear Poison Dragon Paglio. Miss Emerald Long's voice was still very gentle, but her eyes were almost on the verge of turning black. Look over there! Master Poison Dragon pointed to the sky. Miss Emerald Long looked up, but there was nothing. She suddenly reacted and saw that her dear sir had turned into a stream of light and escaped to the front. Bastard! Stop right there! Miss Emerald Long knew that she was fooled, so she chased angrily. You guys seem to have forgotten something. Catherine, who needed to be escorted, expressed that she was innocent and speechless. Chapter 1058. After chasing Emerald Miss Long, she finally remembered Catherine, who needed protection, so she turned back and escorted the almost forgotten Her Majesty Empress back to the team's gathering place. Rala returned with Dodo after searching in another direction to no avail. When she saw Catherine, who had advanced to demigod, she couldn't help but be stunned. In fact, in the heart of Miss Fairy Dragon, the first beauty of the demon realm, Her Majesty had always been a strong competitor in the harem. Unexpectedly, she had also become a demigod. In terms of strength, she was also faintly competing with her. She was secretly surprised. The two coincidentally felt a special connection between each other. It should be the relationship between the gods of that world. Soon after, Chenrui, who was always worried about Catherine, rushed over with his teammates in the Tower of Glory. Catherine's weak period lasted for about half a day before she returned to normal. The main reason was that she was still unfamiliar with the power she currently had. Before participating in this trial, Catherine's strength was at the critical point between the peak of the kingdom and demigod. As she said to Chenrui, what was parasitism left her with incredible power, and she had only absorbed a part of it. With the success of this star-level enhancement, Catherine obtained the wisdom, deity position in the galaxy of stars. At the same time, she felt the vast and almost endless vitality and faith power in the entire galaxy of stars. Faced with the arrival of the crisis, Catherine wisely chose to enter the training ground to train. Those who obtained the deity position could freely use the training ground in the super system. After advancing to Purple Pole Emperor, the highest time rule of the training ground reached 1,000. The training ground projection that could be placed outside was still only half effective, but the entrants were no longer limited to the linked objects. They could exchange the fruit of faith from the exchange center and enter after consuming the fruit. Those who entered by relying on the power of the fruit were different from the linked objects. There was a considerable time limit, and they couldn't use the time rule of the highest authority. In the super system's training ground, the talent and understanding shown by Catherine made Chenrui secretly shameful. This is a real genius. Chenrui, on the other hand, was just basking in the light of the super system and the traverser. When Catherine displayed a big move similar to a constellation, Chenrui couldn't help but be surprised. The Phoenix constellation was not virtual energy, but it was composed of the strongest, intelligent, faith planets in the super system's star territory. It formed a galaxy nation with real life and faith. In fact, it was only a small part of his vast universe territory. Shinrei had seen such a similar form in one place before, and that was the mysterious final chaos realm. There were many huge corpses there, which were actually huge galaxies. However, these galaxies were all dead, without any signs of life. Catherine became a real god? What about him, an existence that could become a god? In any case, it was meaningless to explore this now. Even if he, Catherine, and the others really embarked on this incredible path, they were still just weaklings in front of those true powerhouses, let alone gods. Perhaps this was a road to the sky, but there was still a long way to go. Seeing Shinrei's nervous look, and Paglio and Crobolus constantly expressed admiration for Catherine's kingdom, Miss Long inevitably felt a little upset in her heart. Catherine was just a new demigod, and she was about to reach the middle stage of demigod. If she challenged her, it would be obvious that she was bullying her. Moreover, Catherine had been getting along well with her during this period of time, and she was also the mother of her favorite Miss Duo. In desperation, Zola had to hide her little discomfort in her heart. However, Miss Long's depression was noticed by the attentive Isabella. She pulled this sister to the side and asked a few words, and she understood in her heart. Soon, Shinrei, who was instructed by Isabella, came to Rala's side and said a few thoughtful words. Miss Long still pretended to be dumb on the surface, but she felt much more comfortable in her heart. Shinrei took the opportunity to raise the doubts in his heart. Catherine advanced to demigod after obtaining the wisdom, deity position of the supersystem, so she has the galaxy territory of Phoenix. Rala obtained the knowledge, deity position after advancing to demigod, so is there any change in her sixth elemental kingdom? Rala immediately cast the sixth elemental kingdom. Shinrei clearly felt the power and breath belonging to the elements of heaven and earth. It was not the power of the galaxy. While he was thinking, he saw a hint of playfulness in Miss Long's purple eyes. The sixth elemental kingdom suddenly disappeared, and a dazzling starlight flickered faintly with 7 colors. The shining stars became prominent in the nebula, and the majestic and vast power of life and faith surged out. Shinrei's eyes lit up. This is Dual Kingdom. In addition to the 6 elemental kingdoms, Rala also has the power of the apotheosized god kingdom with the supersystem. It turned out that after Rala became the god of knowledge, last time, she had been feeling a new power lingering in her body. Due to the limitations of the original 6 elemental kingdoms, she had been unable to jump out of this framework and form her own system. Through the actual combat training in the UFO these days, although she still did not break through to the intermediate stage of demigod, she successfully separated this brand new kingdom. Like Shinrei, she became an extremely rare dual kingdom owner. Unlike Catherine's Phoenix constellation, Rala's constellation was an arc with a faint sense of hierarchy in it. Shinrei gave this constellation a name, Rainbow. This name obviously won Rala's heart, and she kissed him happily. 6 elemental kingdoms, rainbow constellation power, elemental goddess's crown. Shinrei smiled and shook his head. These are the rhythm of the protagonist's halo. Actually, you are the transmigrator, right, Rala? What? For the fairy Miss Long, the word transmigrator was indeed a bit new, so she was taken aback modestly. Enough! The one who went mad was actually Paglio on the side. Master Poison Dragon's face was full of jealousy, envy, and hatred. You are all, what is that word called? By the way, the male and female protagonists with cheats. Where do you want us, the short and poor losers, to be? Master Poison Dragon was indeed unbalanced in his heart. At the beginning, this cunning human was just a weakling without any power. He watched this guy walk all the way. From looking down to looking up now, he almost couldn't bear to look directly at the depression in his heart now. And that madwoman, even if she was a bit stronger than me, she was more or less at the same level. Now, she is actually far ahead of me. Catherine is the same. Little Betty's close friend, Isabella, is now about to reach the middle stage of the kingdom. Maybe she will also jump up one day. It seems that the women related to this guy, except for those non-combative ones, are improving at a rapid speed. What? The men related to me are also improving in strength. I am already in the Peak Kingdom now? Damn it! How can that be compared with women? The friendship between Chunrei and the dead duck dragon existed since he first transmigrated to this world. How could he not know what this guy was thinking? After forcibly suppressing his unscrupulous nephew who followed him to make a fuss as his uncle, he glanced at the poisoned dragon faintly and showed a strange smile. This smile, full of friendship, made Master Poison Dragon's heart a little creepy. What are you smiling at? Congratulations, my friend forever. You cunning human, what the hell? I heard that you planned to propose to Betty. Ah? This stab hit Master Poison Dragon's vital point firmly. Even if he didn't look back, he could feel Miss Betty's resentful and expectant gaze behind him. What I said at that time doesn't count. You must have heard it wrong. I still want to be single for hundreds of years. I can't just hang myself on a tree like this. My harem dream hasn't been realized yet. In the future, I will bring a group of female dragons to fly on this guy's head. I definitely can't say these thoughts in my heart, otherwise, I will be dead for sure. Piglio suddenly pointed to the sky. What is that? Unfortunately, the same move didn't work on the dragon fighter. The female dragon's fighter who was full of resentment about marriage. In addition, the fairy dragon, accidentally, cast a binding spell on the side, and the poison dragon who wanted to escape was dumbfounded on the spot. Seeing that the situation was not good, his nephew, who was originally an ally, immediately added insult to injury. He was the first to jump out and scold the poison dragon for playing with feelings and being irresponsible. He strongly requested for the wedding to be held now and witnessed by everyone. The poison dragon cursed this traitor thousands of times in his heart, but the fairy Miss Long on the side, accidentally, moved her finger again. Master Poison Dragon felt that he lost control of his neck, and he nodded involuntarily. It's over, damn it, it's all over, a farce began. No matter what the result was, it was a good relaxation for the nerves that had been tense because of training before. Chunrei was beating up the water dragon with everyone, but his expression changed suddenly, and his movements stopped. Because he clearly felt that something was being used. Pearl of Holy Shadow. Pearl of Holy Shadow was a special creation of Holy Light Robe, one of the 3 holy relics of light. Holy Light Robe had the characteristic of light-splitting Holy Shadow, in which light-splitting and Holy Shadow were 2 different abilities. Light-splitting was to create 2 clones to fight. It could only be maintained for 5 seconds, but it was enough to cast a killer move like Nirvana Dimension. If it was combined with the time rule, it might be able to exert a stronger meaning. Holy Shadow was a projection creation technique. After continuing to accumulate enough light attribute power, a pearl would be created. After using it, a projection could be summoned. The projection could be maintained for 1 hour, and it had all the skills of the original body. However, every time the power was used, the energy of the projection would decrease by a little. When the energy was exhausted or the effective time was up, the projection would disappear. Only 1 pearl of Holy Shadow could be created, and Chunrei left this one for Jia just in case. Originally, he still had the secret weapon, Shura, if he wanted to create clones. However, the strange thing was that after comprehending the origin of creation, the skill of this external incarnation turned gray on the skill tree, showing an unusable state. He didn't know why. Now that Jia actually used the Pearl of Holy Shadow, it showed that the situation was quite serious. Chunrei immediately gave a few instructions to Rala and the others, and opened the Stargate. At this time, a person was sitting in the main hall of the Fallen Angel Palace. This man's attitude was not as arrogant as Eski last time. He just stood there calmly, but he gave Jia on the throne a greater pressure, as if she was the one standing, and that person was sitting in the clouds. This man suddenly appeared in the palace, and even the protective titan and giant crystal beast did not notice him at all. The protection of the ancient runes that Chunrei set up could only cause a small obstacle in front of this man, and it disappeared instantly. Therefore, Jia used the pearl of holy shadow without hesitation. Chapter 1059. The man's facial features were a little blurred, but his eyes were faintly glowing. Seeing Chenrui, who suddenly appeared in front of him, he was not moved at all. He was still as calm as water. Chenrui waved his hand. Jia stood up from the throne, bowed, and retreated. This scene was naturally colluded by Chenrui and Jia long ago. The more alienated he was from Jia, the more he used the relationship, the safer Jia would be. Chenrui's eyes were always looking at Satan. The two men's eyes confronted each other in the air. The space in the palace hall seemed to have solidified like iron and stone. Chenrui suddenly smiled, and the entire iron and stone feeling suddenly disappeared. He raised his hand and gestured. "Please sit down." The man did not sit down. He just looked at him lightly with a trace of indifference in his eyes. Chenrui was no longer polite and sat down by himself. "I didn't expect Sir Satan to come in person. It's an honor." It turned out that the one who appeared in front of Jia was actually Satan himself. It was impossible for Chenrui not to be nervous at this time. Unlike people like Michael and Raphael, he came into contact with Satan before Charlie. From the moment he first entered Mountain Secret, the invincible and powerful man left a deep impression in his heart. The powerhouse who appeared later, Dragon Emperor's father-in-law Augustus, also said that Satan was the strongest fake god, and he was far from being his opponent. After entering the kingdom level and possessing the polar star transformation that was comparable to a demigod, Chenrui increasingly felt the power of Satan and Charlie. He also witnessed the duel between the two fake gods. Now, he was finally going to face this terrifying enemy alone. Nervousness did not mean fear. Instead, there was a fighting spirit. The enemy that he once needed to look up to now finally had the time to look directly at. Chenrui's thoughts were fluctuating, but his eyes became more and more solemn. Just like the powerful enemy opposite him, he seemed calm. The Satan in front of him, or more accurately speaking, was a clone. The importance of the Temple of Darkness to Satan was self-evident. He had chosen to come personally this time because he wanted to wake up that mysterious expert, and he had sent a clone over as a precaution. Chenrui was also not his real body, but a projection. This projection had the power of the polar star transformation. Even if Satan's doppelganger had mysterious powers, under normal circumstances, it should not be difficult to kill it. However, that would completely fall out with Satan. Right now, he did not have the strength to fight Satan head-on. The reason why Satan was in his usual state was because he was a veteran pinnacle semi-divinity. Even if he was just a clone, he might still have some life-saving trump cards. Moreover, Chenrui had personally witnessed the battle between Charlie and Satan's clones. Both of them had used secret techniques to project their clones into their main bodies. Once Satan's main body descended, Chenrui would have no choice but to flee. Whether it was his main body descending or killing his doppelganger, it was the worst possible outcome. Right now, Chenrui was not addressing Satan as Lord, but as Your Excellency. It was clear that he was playing the role of an opponent of the same level. "I don't remember having an old friend like you," Satan said indifferently. "Perhaps the word friend doesn't even deserve to be used. There are no eternal enemies, nor are there eternal friends." Chenrui remained calm. Even people like Michael would choose to cooperate with the fallen they speak of when their interests are greater than their conflicts. The word fallen was something that Chenrui had heard when Michael and Ben Hong were confronting each other. Satan raised his eyebrows slightly. "You know more than I imagine, but it is not enough to stand in front of me as an equal. So you are talking about strength." Chenrui smiled. "Does Your Excellency Satan want to prove it?" "Humph." Satan glanced at him contemptuously. "If the mastermind behind this is just you, then I advise you to stop bluffing. Surrender or annihilation, it's your choice. I have to explain two things." Chenrui shook his head lightly. "First, I am indeed the mastermind behind this, but I am not the only one. Second, you don't have the ability to annihilate or surrender me." Although this tone was flat, The words were clearly tit for tat. Satan's eyes narrowed. The hall that was protected by the ancient runes actually trembled slightly. This hall is just an ancient runes array set up by demigod. If you want to project your real body here, this place will definitely not be able to withstand it. Perhaps we can change to another place? When Satan heard the words projected real body, his eyes flashed, and he sneered. I don't need my real body to deal with you. It is not a good thing to be too self-righteous. Shinrei still maintained a calm smile. Everyone's strength or power is different. If it is just about the doppelganger, to put it bluntly, you are not my opponent. Is that so? Satan slowly stretched out his hand, and Shinrei felt a strong fluctuation. That hand instantly grabbed his neck. This was not pure speed, but the power of the law. Satan suddenly frowned. He actually returned to his original place, and his hand was still stretched out. The other party's neck was not in his grasp, as if it was just an illusion. Satan knew very well that it was not an illusion. He immediately felt the mystery of this law, and his eyes suddenly became dignified. Time? What Satan displayed just now was the law of time, which made the flow of time suddenly accelerate. The opponent could not resist at all. However, an opposite power of time was emitted from that person, and the flow of time slowed down again. The power of the laws cancelled each other out, resulting in the scene just now. Time had always been one of his greatest mysteries. He did not expect this person to have the same law. You are not the only one who has the law of time, or the power. The other party's calm voice made Satan's killing intent soar. He said coldly, I underestimated you, but your law of time is not worth mentioning in front of me. Even if it is as you said, I am not the only one who has the power of time. After today, I will be the only one. You can try. Shinrei became calmer. The power of time is only one of my powers. As far as I know, time is also not your only profound. Perhaps I can see the power of collapse, cut, or blasphemy? Satan was secretly surprised when he heard that this person seemed to know everything about him. He shouted, Collapse! Space immediately distorted intensely, and it actually collapsed. The entire palace hall, which was protected by the ancient runes, was turned to dust by this terrifying power of destruction. However, the strange thing was that the external framework was still intact, as if it was an independent space. Moreover, it did not move at all under such terrifying destruction. Satan noticed this, and his eyes narrowed. However, his attention quickly fell on the person opposite him. The power of collapse landed solidly on this person's body, but this person's body suddenly became transparent. The power of collapse was like a ray of light that shot into a mirror, and it actually reflected back at Satan. This change was right in front of him. Satan's pupils shrank, and his eyes emitted a cold light. The power of collapse immediately slowed down. He was about to think of a way to break his own attack, but he suddenly felt the flow of time change, and his pupils involuntarily shrank. This change was fleeting, and there was no follow-up. The power of collapse had already swept back in an overwhelming manner. Satan did not have the time to think, and he shouted, Blasphemy! When he shouted these two words, Satan was already enveloped by his disintegration. However, a special power spread in the air, and the power of disintegration that could destroy everything disintegrated and scattered like gravel. Shinrei did not take advantage of the situation to attack, and only stood calmly in front of Satan. Satan looked at him coldly, but did not say anything. However, Shinrei knew that Satan had doubts in his heart. In that instant just now, Shinrei could have used time laws of time to cancel out Satan's time laws of time, making it impossible for him to calmly dispel the collapse that was reflected back at him. However, Shinrei did not do so. Mercy to the enemy is cruelty to oneself. Both of us are not stupid people to be able to live to this day, Shinrei said calmly. I just feel that the relationship between us has not reached the point where we have to fight to the death for now. Satan sneered. You said fight to the death? I said earlier that everyone's ability is different. If we're talking about clones, my ability is more special, and it won't be difficult for me to kill you. As soon as he finished speaking, a purple light filled the entire hall. It was as resplendent as the stars, and a powerful aura was emitted. Satan's expression changed. This aura and level of power had clearly surpassed the scope of a demigod. Is this a projection of the real body? No, there didn't seem to be any signs of life transmission. Generally speaking, the projection was a realm lower than the actual person. Even a pinnacle demigod powerhouse could only project a pinnacle demigod as a clone. This enemy's clone could actually reach the demigod level. Even if it was a very low-level demigod, it was still a demigod. It was not something that a demigod could resist. In the resplendent purple light, a pair of star-like eyes fell on Satan's face. I don't like to exaggerate. As I said, everyone's ability is different. It's just that the talent of my clone is a little special. This attribute of armor and power. I seem to have seen it somewhere before. Satan's eyes were fixed on the resplendent armor. Who are you? Only the most loyal believers will have the faith armament that I give them. Shinrei's voice was still calm. As for me, aren't I His Excellency Satan's old friend? Humph. Old friend? Satan sneered. You've been controlling the demon realm's empire from behind? What's your goal? My goal may be similar to yours, but the power of faith may not be the real shortcut to that path. Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel have used the Book of Creation to fool human believers for so long, but they haven't succeeded until now. How do you know they haven't succeeded? Not long ago, I went to the holy mountain of light and received the special hospitality of Michael and Raphael. Unfortunately, Gabriel wasn't there. Shinrei shook his head. Michael's strength may be slightly better than yours, but if it's a life-and-death duel, it's hard to say who will win and who will lose. But one thing is for sure, he's not a god. A strange look flashed past Satan's eyes. You fought with Michael and Raphael? I just wanted to see the Book of Creation. However, I didn't want to get entangled with them in a place like the Holy Mountain of Light, so I had to escape. Fortunately, I didn't go in vain. As Shinrei spoke, a faint light appeared in his hand. The power of creation. Satan felt the change in his own destructive aura and was moved. No, it should be the power of the origin law. Chapter 1060. At this point, Satan could no longer despise this opponent, or rather, he should be promoted to the level of a real opponent. No matter who, no matter what method, to be able to obtain the power of the origin laws of the Book of Creation under the eyes of the three supreme angels was enough to earn this kind of respect. If it was Satan himself, he might not necessarily have this ability. Satan slowly nodded. I underestimated you. You are qualified to stand opposite me. But that's all. You don't have the ability to shake my will. I admit that I am behind the three empires, and there is indeed a conflict of interest between us. Shinrei put away the purple polar transformation and returned to his normal state. However, whether it is the Temple of Darkness or the Temple of Light, they are just tools to steal faith. The so-called three supreme angels are still rejected by that door, including Michael, who claims to be the closest to God. Don't you think it is not worth it to do this? Michael? Satan said proudly. What he can't do doesn't mean I can't do it. Shinrei frowned. Most of the peak pseudo-gods he had come into contact with had stood at the peak of the world for many years. They seemed extremely confident, or rather, proud. I don't know what the basis of your comparison is. Maybe there are many things I don't know, but I know one thing. Faith is not the only path to the gods. There is another possible shortcut. That is, destruction and creation. Satan's eyes flashed. You mean, the pinnacle of power is absolute, but there is more than one path to the pinnacle. Destruction and creation are the most fundamental truths of the universe, as well as the most powerful powers. If one can comprehend the true mystery, it is not impossible to break through the biggest bottleneck. These were Ben Hong's original words, and they came out of Shinrei's mouth. Satan did not refute, but revealed a thoughtful look. From this point of view, our ultimate goal is actually the same. Shenrui threw out a tempting bargaining chip. Although I did not get the Book of Creation from the Temple of Light this time, I stole the complete source of creation. If you want to establish the Temple of Darkness to steal faith, then you should have the complete Book of Destruction. As long as you can provide me with the complete source of destruction, then I think we can establish a mutually beneficial cooperation. This bargaining chip seemed tempting, but it was actually a trap because Satan only had 1/3 of the Book of Destruction. To provide the complete source of destruction, he had to collect 3 silver boxes. Now Satan had 2, but the last one was actually in Shenrui's hands. This main plane was very big. If Shenrui hid the silver box well, Satan might not be able to find it in his life, just like Ben Hong hiding with the silver box. Because Shenrui knew, he deliberately dug a hole and waited for Satan to jump into it. He deliberately pointed out that Satan had the complete Book of Destruction, which was also another kind of reminder. Satan pondered for a moment, and a playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Then he laughed out loud. This was the first time Satan had truly laughed since he came here. However, Shenrui's eyes became solemn. Not only did he not relax, but he also had a premonition of danger. Satan's laughter lasted for a while before it gradually stopped. His burning gaze fell on Shenrui's face, and his smile gradually cooled. You are you, and I am me. What path do I want to take, and what I want to do? Why should I be controlled by you? This sentence was full of arrogance and dominance. Shenrui's brows furrowed tightly. He did not expect that after throwing out such a bait, the other party would not waver. Every powerhouse had their own obsession, and their willpower would never be shifted by external factors. Perhaps this was one of the reasons why they were truly powerful. Your biggest mistake is to compare me with Michael. Satan's voice had become bone-chilling, like an ice sword that penetrated the soul. Put away your sweet words. The only way to change my willpower is strength. Really? Shenrui looked straight into Satan's eyes. From Satan's laughter, he had already guessed that there was no way to be kind. At this moment, his state of mind was surprisingly calm. In fact, he had always had a strange premonition that sooner or later, he would confront such a powerful opponent like Satan head-on. The strongest false god in the demon realm. If Satan was said to be an insurmountable mountain, then his current goal was to complete this almost impossible goal. He would reach the top and look down on all the mountains. Shenrui suddenly thought of the scene when he was still an intermediate demon, and made a war contract with the strongest higher demon, Eryx. It was also an almost impossible task. In the end, he defeated Eryx in front of Shay in the arena that was watched by thousands of people. Although the strength at that time was not worth mentioning now, the will to move forward regardless of everything was surprisingly consistent. Shenrui had a feeling of going back in time in his heart. The firmness at that time and the firmness now seemed to be integrated into one. His eyes became calmer like a sword hidden in a scabbard. Didn't you tell my servants that you are coming to visit an old friend? Satan clearly felt Shenrui's firmness and fearlessness. I will wait for you at Mountain Sacred. Don't say that I didn't give you time to prepare. 3 months! There was a crystal ball in front of Shenrui, and a map-like texture loomed. This crystal ball can bring you or some of your friends to Mountain Sacred. If you can show me your strength as firm as your determination, maybe I can consider some kind of cooperation. If you are willing to join the Darkness Temple and take charge of the faith of this world with me, you can also crush this crystal ball to contact me. However, if I don't see you for 3 months, I will come here to find you. By then, not only you, the so-called 3 empires and those ants who are not willing to believe in the Darkness Temple, everything will be destroyed. Satan was a talented and scheming person. The reason why he gave this 3-month deadline was not that he really wanted to give Shenrui time to prepare, but he had his own plans. He came to the fallen angel empire in person this time to solve the mysterious enemy once and for all, but the unpredictable ability shown by the other party was far beyond his expectations. For the sake of caution, he did not act rashly. More importantly, When Chenrui showed the aura of creation origin just now, some of the stagnation in Satan's heart about the destruction origin suddenly became clear. He was eager to grasp that inspiration, so he made a temporary decision to spend 3 months behind closed doors to further comprehend the destruction origin. Destroy everything? Even those ordinary people are not spared. Where's your pride as a powerhouse? Ignoring is the real pride. Satan sneered. Don't tell me about the super rules of not harming ordinary people. The rules are set by the powerhouse. Since the current rules can't satisfy me, then I don't mind destroying them and making them again. In the eyes of the powerhouse, those ant-like lives are just tools to be kept in captivity. Their fate is to be enslaved or obliterated. Enslaved or obliterated ants? Chenrui took a deep breath. I've only heard one sentence. In the eyes of the gods, all life is just a plaything. You are not a god yet. Satan looked at him deeply. So, I will become a god. The gazes of the two were like sharp needles, confronting each other invisibly in the air. The 3 empires are just temporary tools. They'll be destroyed sooner or later. When that time comes, I'll use the Temple of Darkness as the center to create a unified nation of faith. All the ants will become puppets under the control of the Temple of Darkness. Those who believe in me will live, and those who don't believe in me will die. Satan's tone was full of strong confidence. He didn't seem to care about revealing his plan at all. I have absolute strength. This is an open and above-board plot. What can you do to me? This plan is actually somewhat in line with the Lord of Midnight's son who possessed Terrace back then. Those who obey will prosper, and those who resist will perish. Now, Chenrui didn't hesitate anymore. He nodded slowly. Okay. I will visit at any time within 3 months. At any time? Satan raised his eyebrows and walked out. Mountain Secret was his base camp. Even if there was any sudden incident during the retreat, he could completely cope with it. When he walked to the entrance of the hall, Satan's footsteps suddenly stopped. What you just said about understanding destruction and creation. I've heard someone say the same thing. That person is a real old friend. Satan's cold eyes flashed with a strange light. If you have any connection with her, I think you will bring me a huge surprise at that time. This sentence made Chenrui's heart skip a beat. He didn't expect that Satan would actually think of Ben Hong because of this, but he still appeared calm. No matter who the person you are talking about is, I believe it will be a meeting worth looking forward to. Satan didn't say anything more. He just glanced indifferently in another direction and walked straight out of the hall. His figure then disappeared into the air. After Satan completely left, the fallen angel palace hall that was destroyed by collapse gradually returned to its original state. What was destroyed just now was just a projection of the hall. This was a special space. Even if it was Satan, with the power of this clone, he couldn't really shake this space. Tower of Brilliance. In the direction that Satan looked at before he left, another figure of Chenrui gradually emerged. The two Chenrui glanced at each other. The one in front nodded slightly and disappeared. What disappeared was the projection of the holy light robe, and what appeared behind was Chenrui, who rushed back from the UFO land. Although Satan was just a clone, he actually faintly felt some kind of covetousness. Coupled with the powerful fluctuations displayed by this space, it made Satan more and more unable to figure out the depth of this palace today. He didn't turn hostile directly, but he chose to retreat in order to advance. This time, Satan came in person, barely passed the test and delayed for 3 months. However, Chenrui knew very well that there would be a huge test after 3 months. He learned from Ben Hong that Satan's ambition wasn't just a day or 2 days ago. He had always wanted to control the entire demon realm, reformulate the rules with himself as the leader, and make everyone a puppet to be manipulated. This hidden ambition finally expanded unprecedentedly and burst out now. Perhaps Satan also wanted to use this unity to search for the last part of the Book of Destruction. No matter what the purpose was, it would be a terrible disaster for the demon realm that had finally settled down. This was different from the holy light mountain facing the supreme angel. Chenrui couldn't avoid or escape because Catherine, Jia, Tiffany, and even the entire demon realm were behind him. Those ant-like lives were just tools in captivity. Their fate was to be enslaved or obliterated. In the eyes of the gods, all lives were just playthings. Gods? Shenrui closed his eyes, and the endless galaxy appeared in his heart. There were countless creatures in the galaxy. Life. For a moment, Shenrui fell into deep thought.